Welcome to Loose Talk Podcast. Yeah, I know we always have special guests, but this is a really special guest.
Special.
VIP guest.
Yes, okay, VIP. Very important.
Yeah.
Super important. All right, guys, Loose Talk Giants. We have Mr. Donald Duke in the building.
Hi, how you guys?
We're good.
We're good.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's strange, I don't know if you listen to, past editions. I don't want you to, but it's really good to have you here because not only do we have super important guests like this, I mean, not to throw shades at the other guests we've had because they've come to tell amazing stories as well, but you're running for president. Let me just drop that ball, it's a big deal.
That's serious stuff.
Yeah. Serious stuff.
Sometimes I wake up and say, how did Jola get me into this mess?
Don't just go to YouTube and watch anything about us. But we're so happy we have you here because we are going to have a lot of interesting discussions. A lot of people have questions. We have questions. So it's a great avenue to just chat, and talk about you, talk about your life, talk about how you've gotten to this very moment where you are and what the future holds for you and Nigeria. So thank you for, gracing, this.
Thanks, Osagie. I'm glad to be here, actually. And I think it's great to have discovered this.
Yeah.
It's, except you're in your world.
Yeah.
And you guys are in your own bubble.
Yeah.
It's not the normal stuff
Yeah.
that people know about. So this is great. And I'm really proud of what I've seen. Leo said you have about 250 guys working here.
Yeah.
Like I said to you coming up, the working environment is not the norm,
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of work and play.
Yeah.
And that obviously enhances your productivity because you're working in an environment that you enjoy. So it's more like joyful activity going on here. You said you come to work something about 6 a.m. and leave about 10. So you live here.
Yeah,
You sleep somewhere else, but you live here.
And when you just need to be somewhere where you can really just relax your mind. After facing all that traffic, after facing all those, SARS chasing you. Not sure if you could make it to the office on time. And so many things. You just want one place where you can really relax yourself and be comfortable.
It's good.
So great. I think, let's just go straight to it. Less than a year to the elections, you've announced that you are running for president.
Declaration of intent.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, declaration of intent. Why so I say so soon? Or too late rather? Too late? Is it too late?
Well, if you look at the field in Nigeria, I don't think it's too late. A lot of people have not said anything. There's a lot of body language, but at least I was bold enough to say it. So far, only 3 people have said it.
Yeah.
The incumbent, Atiku, and myself.
Yeah.
So the thing is, Nigerian politics, we're still not as democratic as we ought to be. Some folks get angry that you want to be president. It ought not be that way. It's your constitutional right to aspire. So some people are like, okay, for instance, in APC, if you get up today and say you want to run for presidency, you are persona non grata then immediately.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be that way, So I know there are lots of folks out there. In my mental reckoning, there are about 15 people who, given the opportunity, will throw their hat in the ring. But only 3 so far have mentioned it. And that just tells you that it's a very immature democracy.
Yeah.
I mean, some people think, in the States, a governor, one of the states, a governor said to me, can you imagine my commissioner resigned because he wants to contest? And I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
But we appropriate offices. So if I'm governor, that is my own.
Yeah.
And anyone who aspires is trying to steal what
God has given to me.
And you can see it in many ways.
Yeah.
When Umaru was ill and in hospital,
the
country literally came to a standstill.
Yeah.
From his hospital bed, he was asked to sign that budget.
Yeah.
I know he didn't sign anything. They have their signature on a stamp and all that. But constitutionally, the vice president moves in. It's supposed to be a seamless system. And so it's also responsible why we have a checkered system of governance where there's no continuity. Because once you go, the next man comes, okay, you've gone, let me just start my own thing, and all that.
Probably wipe what you've done. Yeah.
If he needs to do that to grow. So it's immaturity, a lot of it in the system, which we have to do something about.
Okay, if I can ask, you talking about people getting angry for you coming up to say, I'm in this position. Is it true that you fell out with Obasanjo because he had the ambition of being president just after him?
No, on the contrary, I maintain a good relationship with him. He had his own views. Again, it's part of ownership of this thing, You want to run, have I offered it to you? And all that. He probably had his own views and of the folks he wanted to take over from him. So he literally picked Umaru Yar'Adua and Goodluck Jonathan. One thing about an office as serious as a presidency, you don't conscript people to run. Because you must be mentally, physically, spiritually, right? And ready for the job. Mentally, you must have the vision for it, okay? Spiritually, you must be strong. You must be of good faith, regardless of what your faith is. And physically, you must have the will, the desire to make it happen, because you're going to be constantly swimming against the wave. The presidency of Nigeria is so all-powerful. He is a deity. I mean, I hate to say this, but I've been where people say, Oga, after God, na you. And it may sound blasphemous, but there's some truth in it. So the struggle for it is enormous. You see the man walking, and sometimes you just look at this man and say, this man is so powerful, And but it ought not be that way. It ought not be that way.
I want to take you back, to like our very first question. When was when was the moment in your mind? When did you mentally make that decision? To walk down this line right now. You couldn't. You hear what I'm like? What time? What time?
I'm laughing.
It's a long time.
I was about 8 years old.
Honestly, come on.
I'm serious. I remember one day walking up to my father and saying, and I had one of those parents who would always encourage you. I said to my father, I'd like to be president of Nigeria, but I want to be governor of my state first, then eventually be president. He said, really? I said, yes. I said, and what would you do? And I prattled off and said so many things. He says, well, if you really think that hard, believe in yourself and work hard towards it. But you've got to do well in school, right? Bring me back on track. And all that. So, yes, I've been politically conscious from childhood. And my favorite subject was history. And if you like history, and my specialty in history, and I still consider myself as an authority of the history of the world from 1914 to the present day. I could lecture in any university. I could be a professor in that field. I love it. And I constantly update myself. The history of the world from 1914 to the present day is pure politics. From the First World War to the Second World War, the Korean War, the developments and this and that and all that. So that, if you ask where the origin, it's that far back. But, at the age of 18 into 19, I was a member of the Students' Union in Ahmadu Bello University. And Ahmadu Bello was a very political university. There were maybe one or two other universities in the entire North, but it was the largest university in all of West Africa. At that time, it was only 25,000 students, and it was the largest. Today, every other university is 25,000. But at that office as social secretary, which is not, you may not consider it that
important,
but it was very political for them. It was there you come across a crisis in our country, the distinctions between North and South, Christian and Muslim. Okay? But I still had the edge and I won. Then I, along with some other friends, sponsored a governor. I was about 29, 30 then. Sponsored a governor or influenced the emergence of a governor. And he insisted I be his commissioner for finance, budget and planning. And thereafter, that was short-lived. I was commissioner from about 30 to, from the age of 30 to slightly under 30.
1992?
92 to 93.
93, yeah.
Then from 95, I had a year break. From 95, I became a member of the National Economic Intelligence Committee, which again was under a military government. It was Abacha who was head of state. But we were his de facto cabinet. Whatever memo came to council we had an opinion to write. So we attended council meetings, and I was also a member of the National Economic Council of the country. So I had an incredible perspective of governance. Then in 98, I decided to run. And so, that's the journey so far.
Yeah, I mean, okay. But to bring you back again to my first question, right?
You're really hooked on this, your first question.
Yeah, I am. Of course, with the announcement, people even in this office and, just conversations on social media was how long is it going to take you to be able to rile up the grassroots? How long is it? You have to go on that journey. We need to see that journey. And your case is a bit different because you've been a state governor.
Has won 2 elections.
You get what I mean? So yes, it's a bit different, but we need to see that journey from the grassroots again, not just your state. We're talking 36 states now. It's different. It's complex. You've said it before. Nigeria is a complex country. You have how many tribes, how many languages, different backgrounds. How are you building from that grassroots, building the momentum to the top for the elections next year?
This is part of it. I asked you a question. What's your listenership or viewership because people underestimate the urbanites, your influencers, right? And that's what in politics, where the elites go, that's where largely the rest of society goes. But yes, we have about 6 months to the elections, and we have to hit the ground hard running, going to communities and all that. And we're not going to do it in a haphazard way. We've actually started. Yesterday I was in Abuja speaking to a group that was so diverse, about 500 folks who came from literally all over the country to listen. But we would start stumping when a few things have happened. And let me preempt you. We need to sort out the issue of platform, because I know you're going to ask that question sooner or later. So let me just take care of it now. CUPP, coalition of these parties and all that. So if you ask Atiku, for instance, what party are you running on? He'll step back a bit, because is it going to be PDP? What's this coalition going to look like? Yeah. We know he's a member of the PDP and all that. Yeah. So the opposition is still in a state of flux, but that's normal. It will be okay by the end of the month. That will sort itself out. But again, I also don't want to be caught in a web. We have this interesting way of getting people off the scene. They say, we've zoned it to this part of the country. Yeah. Well, I don't buy that. A few people can't stay in the room and decide where the country should go. It's a democracy, so everyone should have the opportunity to put himself forward. So I want to be careful. I don't want to be caught in that web, because if you jump on a platform and that platform announces that they've zoned it, before you even start the race, it's over for you. Yeah. So you've got to be quite strategic about it and see what happens.
When will that happen, though?
In the next month or so, it'll be clear. And besides, my perception right now, people are not voting for parties. They're looking for an individual they can
connect with.
Saw that with the last election.
So, and the elections are not tomorrow; they're in about 6 months. So there's time. you know. The important thing is sell the message, connect with the people, and see how things go from there.
We see how influential parties are, right? In this democracy, in a dispensation, we see how there's so much reference, there's so much discussions about parties and how parties are almost more influential. I won't say more influential, but like revered, even though there's a president. The discussion between APC and PDP now is at its height, while we should actually be discussing about the president and the people in these offices who we should be holding accountable. When you do pick a party, and if it's not a virgin party you're starting, if it's a party you're going to ride on, how do you now express your ideologies and make people take these ideologies and run through the party if they decide to pick you as the flagship?
Truth is, regardless of what party you pick, it's the character of the person who is the flag bearer that will determine the direction the party goes. So when you had an Obasanjo as president, you could see that he literally molded the party to suit his person.
Yeah.
The same thing when Jonathan came in, the party was also molded according to his own person. Whether it was good or bad, he molded according to the person. So today, if you talk to APC, everyone there is singing corruption, corruption, corruption.
Exactly.
3/4 of them are corrupt, but the corrupt people are also singing corruption because that's a swan song in the party.
Yeah.
Because we don't really have parties that are ideological. We have platforms.
Yeah.
So
Coalition
we have
of people.
political platforms, and whoever is heading the platform will dictate the tune of the platform. That's it. I think that what is happening, where there's constant bickering between PDP and APC, not on the progress of the party, I mean, it's on who has power and all that, should be sickening enough, actually, to the vast majority of Nigerians to want to get rid of this nonsense going on.
Yeah. Well, as someone who who's contesting for presidency of the country, like, what are your major the major things you are looking at, the major sectors of the industry you are looking at, like your main concerns?
Broadly, you want to create prosperity, and I said broadly because everyone is going to say that. You want to ensure that every Nigerian is a productive entity, because all our problems come down to the fact that Nigerians, there's too much discontent. So Boko Haram is a result of discontent. The herdsman crisis is discontent. The kidnapping, all those things are all discontent. So you've got to deal with it. How do you deal with it? How do you ensure that the average Nigerian in the prime of his life is a productive entity, able to even aspire to dream? Because I can see our young people getting so disillusioned that they don't dare to dream anymore. The reason is, and it's pitiable, because at this stage of our development where there's so much to be done that has not been done, and that's the beauty of a developing country. You think if you're in America or in the Western world where everything has been done, you're just going to look for a job and key in. There's very little opportunity for entrepreneurship. But here there's a vast array you can do that has not been done. But what kills these dreams are access to capital, poor infrastructure, low skills development, So here you are, you're probably married, you're young, you're married, you have a kid, you have responsibility. You're afraid to dream. You just want a job to take care of what you have, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you're in a society where access to credits, to capital was affordable and available, then you'll see the productivity of people. Okay? If you wanted to start a business today, whatever business it was, and you needed money from the bank, you go to a bank, chances are that you won't get it.
Yeah, the interest rate is killing. Yeah.
How can you have a society where there's so many people unemployed? Society where they say they want to grow by 6% annually. I mean, that's what the government says, which I think it means you have no ambition. Because if your population is growing at 3.2% and you want to grow at 6%, then you really don't have any ambition. I've said that we have to grow at 15% constantly for 10 years. Non-oil. Leave the oil. Even if the oil is $200 a barrel, it doesn't matter. But non-oil has to grow consistently for 15% for 10 years to recalibrate the country, because we should be a $2.5 trillion economy and not a $500 billion economy. But here you are, you want to grow the economy and there's no access to credit. So if you find that we keep on talking about foreign investor, only fools thread where angels dare. If Nigerians are not investing in their country, why should a foreigner come here and invest?
Yeah.
Foreigners run on the back of Nigerian investment, you know. And so even the FDI that comes in is very short term. They come in and play in the stock market. And before you say Jack Robinson, they're shipping their money out. So you can't plan on that. And so we need to look at our entire financial system. Here you are with banks declaring huge profits. It's hardly a bank that doesn't have a private jet for their MD. That's all part of your interest rate, right? And when you think of banking critically, you ask yourself a few questions. This is OPM, other people's money. So banks take your deposits, make a huge profit out of it, will not give you a loan on it, you know? So we've got to redesign that system. Then you've got to look at the basic infrastructure that we constantly talk about is energy, power. It's not rocket science. And I think, if anything, Nigeria is an energy-blessed country. And our energy is gas, not even oil. We have 10 times more gas than we have oil. So we were able to flare 2.5.
Yeah, we keep flaring it.
We were at one stage, we were flaring 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas daily, which is equivalent to about 25 million liters of diesel. Okay? Now, if I were going to put turbines to power all of Africa, they won't consume 25 million liters of diesel. You know, that's huge. I mean, we've been doing this for over 30 years. And I've said in different fora, if you clean up the gas, pipe it and distribute it throughout the country, right? You get all these factories off the national grid, put them on gas, free the national grid for domestic and small-scale enterprises. This country would, with appropriate credits, this country would explode.
But we know why this isn't happening, because some people are benefiting off a broken system.
Basically corruption,
The will is not there. The will. I mean, really, every president lives for history, would love to be immortalized. So they would like to take this idea and make, I'm the one that made Nigeria a great country. But they get there, and you discuss this, and I have had the opportunity of discussing this with presidents and all that. But the will is just not there. You talk about the broken system. Yes, it's a broken system, but it's your will to overcome that. So if you, for instance, you guys are all businessmen, I ask you, let's hypothetically, you're creaming off the system that is not working. But I'm president. I have all the powers. I should be able to overcome you. But if I don't have the will, right, I'll join you. So that's the point. I mean, I've seen it happen. I've been involved in governance. And I always tell members of my cabinet that to be a successful leader, your will should be such that if people think they're crazy, fine. But where their craze ends, I give gap before I start my own. So whatever you want to come, I will come with the full might of my will and the office. And if I have to walk through that wall, I will do it. Because you see, the best politics is doing the right thing. Here you are, I gave you a little example. I've just used two instances that can catapult this country to a stratosphere. Look, you're flaring gas, distribute it. In fact, I've said sometimes, give the gas free. They say, why? I say, you're flaring it, so give it free. Let that be a subsidy to industry, because you're in an environment where business is hard. So we subsidize you with free gas. But it's not that free, because it will enhance your productivity, and at the end of the day, you'll be generate more revenue, and so I can tax you more. After all, we build expensive roads, we don't toll them, because in our minds, we know that it will enhance business. So give the gas free. Okay, it's not like petrol. We subsidize petrol that we import. No, subsidize the gas. Don't subsidize petrol. Okay, because you see in petrol they'll tell they smuggle it across the border. You can't smuggle the gas across the border. Okay, so you use it. Then factories that are producing at 20-30% capacity will go up to 100%. Your product will be competitive globally because you have knocked out about 30-40% of your operational cost. Then if your interest rate is also under 10% in the single digits, you are globally competitive. You will dominate all of West and Central African markets. And that's what we should be doing. It's not rocket science, it's just a desire to do it. In 3 years, you can have a gas grid, and I've worked it out. You need 5,000 kilometers of gas pipelines throughout the country to ensure that there's gas everywhere. Okay? While that is being constructed, in 3 years, you can clean up that gas and pipe it throughout the country. Look, the furthest north gas is Abacha now. Yeah. Right? Ajaokuta was where it got to. Yeah. It was the Dangote industry that moved it to.
Yeah.
Why isn't there gas even in Abuja? Abuja to Abuja is not far. Why isn't there no gas in Kano? There should be gas everywhere. And the interesting thing about gas is that it's not only available in the Niger Delta. In the Benue Trough, there's a lot of gas. In fact, the Benue Trough is mostly gas. So it's not that you're getting only the gas from the Niger Delta. You can get it from other parts of the country. But that's where our real resource is. I don't know if you've been listening to the news. Donald Trump is accusing Germany of it's gas from Russia. So energy is the basis. Look, slavery was not because they wanted black people in America. They needed them for energy.
Manpower. Yeah.
It was energy. So the whole world is run by energy. And here you are flaring your own. Come on. How? It's difficult. I don't know.
Well, why is our political system, producing leaders that don't have the political will?
Because you're not involved. Because in a military regime, you can say, okay, you had no voice. But now we're in a democratic system. You've got to take charge. You've got to get involved. Because you failed this time doesn't mean you give up, right? You keep on striving. But something happened in 2015. We showed that we could change leadership. That should buoy us now to say, okay, so we can do this thing. All right, we're not going to take this nonsense anymore. And that's why it's so shocking that even though we succeeded in 2015, we're still that lethargy to go get young people to go register and all that. They're so excited to say, not too young to run. There's nothing novel about, I was young. By the time I was 45, I'd done 8 years, I'd retired, Dieter Spiff, okay, that was military. He was 24 as governor. Gowon was 32.
Yeah.
We've had young people. M. Tinubu was 29 in a democracy, So it's not just reducing the age of participation in politics. It's a desire to get involved. And it's your future that is directly at risk. The folks who are in their 70s, the average cut-off age in Nigeria is about 50-something. So anyone who is 50, he's in 70s is doing extra time.
Well, there's, some would say, especially for kids who were born in like the 80s, there's this theory about, being born into the military dispensation era, Buhari, post-Buhari, Babangida. And when, 99 came, people were already grown up. So through those years, people they didn't understand, there was no democracy. People didn't also understand why there was this fear in participation, patriotic to their society. So we bred a couple of people, and at the age of, by 99, you had grown-ups who necessarily didn't care about their country. The second thing is, history has also been pulled out from the syllabus in schools. So you have kids going from primary school all the way up to university who don't study history, who can't name... It's
one of the biggest disasters in education.
They are head of state and president from 1960 till now.
Key dates in Nigerian history.
Hey, shout out to, Babcock University. There was a girl from there who saw Alvin Okoko and said he was the past president. So they are fundamental problems, and these are the kind of problems that have now been built into monsters and shaped young people who do not necessarily...
Are you making excuses?
No, it's not an excuse, but it's a reality. It's actually a reality.
It is a reality that you've got to...
Also, I mentioned the distrust for media.
You've got to deal with that reality. If you're born with a disability, you've got to deal with it, right? and not make excuses for
Yeah.
it. Truth is this: yes, they were born at a time, they're dislocated somewhat, but they also form part of the most enlightened generation of Nigerians because they're plugged into what's happening around the world.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to say, oh, you're so enlightened, you know everything going on in America and the rest of the world, you don't know your backyard. Okay, yes, history is not taught, but you've taken the energy to find out what's going on in America, who's going to win the American election, the young people who are emerging in Europe. Going to the same internet, you'll know what happened in Nigeria and all that. No. The leadership and the older generation has a responsibility to inspire them and get them involved. You've got to prepare them for leadership. Because whether you like it or not, sooner or later, they would evolve into leadership. You would expire and the next group will come in. So if you don't prepare the next generation, the country will suffer for it. The next generation itself should also start preparing itself, how do I say this?
Pick up the baton.
They have to. I know they were born under different circumstances and all that, but it's really no excuse because I know when they want to do something, they do it. We're just walking through this establishment. You guys form the smartest crop of Nigerians, right? You're exposed, you know what is happening everywhere in the world. But if you know everything happening outside and you don't know what's happening within, then there's something fundamentally wrong somewhere, So, in fact, going around the country, I find that the folks in the rural areas know more about the country than the urbanites because we're living like ostriches, So we need to do something about that. But I agree with you, the leadership has to start preparing the next generation. A gentleman said to me when I was governor, he said, who is your successor? I said, I'm working on it. He said, well, let me tell you something. Success, he said, you've done well as governor, very well. But I'll tell you, success without a successor is a failure. I like the rhyme to it, but later on I found that it is very, very true. No matter how well a leadership will succeed now, if you don't prepare the next generation, you fail because everything you've done will be wiped out.
Yeah, let's go back to everything you've done being wiped out. You had, that,
Okay,
that
I stepped into that one.
You had a brilliant, idea about Tinapa and everything, and you left, and the intriguing thing to me is, the person who came in was from the same party, Imoke, and somebody you even campaigned for when you were governor. If we have that problem of even the same party, someone not able to carry on the good work of the other person, where do we go from there?
I told you earlier on, we don't have parties, we have political platforms. So the person just stands on that platform to win an election. He doesn't share any ideology, doesn't share any beliefs and all that. Yeah. The only belief is in himself. In the case of Cross River, it was rather sad because here we were. The Cross River of today was designed by 3 people, largely. And we took the state by storm. We were in our 30s, very idealistic, Here I was, I had this background as commissioner. I'm a lawyer professionally, but I have this background as commissioner. I'd been in the National Economic Intelligence Committee, so I knew the country very well. Imoke, for instance, who was my successor, to date is the youngest senator Nigeria has ever produced. He was senator at the age of 30. And another friend of ours, Gershon Bassey, who is currently a senator today. So we had that, but it's a plague. It's a plague with Nigeria because we don't build. When you're governor or you're in office, you're a shift worker. After 4 or 8 years, the shift moves. Yeah. If the next shift has to start from the beginning, you'll never complete the building. So that's what happens. And it's not just Cross River. You see it everywhere. I mean, the Tinapa may be a fresh example, but the most tortuous example is Ajaokuta.
Steel company.
That's an $8 billion investment. If you're going to build that facility today, it will cost you $20 billion. And we walked away.
Yeah.
And we walked. Ajaokuta was done in 1979, 80, 81. over 30 years ago, and we just walked away as if it was nothing.
I was still imposting.
And we're importing steel.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you rationalize that? Yeah, I mean, Tinapa is painful because it's recent, but nothing is worse than that. And you have, they say we have 23 trillion naira worth of abandoned projects in Nigeria. So it's just a story. And no one is held responsible for it. And if you go to talk to someone, in case of Tinapa, for instance, they'll say, oh, it won't work. It's a white elephant project. Yeah. And when I hear that, I smile, because I think the only white elephant is a substance between the brains of the person saying it. Because, and a governor said, oh, it will work in Lagos. I say, yes, because you don't want to think hard. But the truth is, Cross River is at the end of Nigeria. Nobody goes there except you have business there. So to get Cross River to work, you've got to create cause for people to go there. And that's why Tinapa is an important thing. And it's not the structure that makes it important. It's the fact that it was a free zone and that we are a huge consumer economy. And so if I can get the things I want in Dubai and London and all that in Tinapa, 1 hour flight within my country without worrying about visa and all that, it's going to be a huge draw. That's what Dubai is all about. It's the middle of a desert, but you can get stuff there. That's what Las Vegas is. I don't know if you know the story of Las Vegas. There's a guy called Bugsy. At the time of the prohibition in America, you know, you couldn't sell alcohol. Gambling was prohibited. Of course, prostitution was prohibited. Everything, you know. So he goes to the governor of Nevada and says, give me 1 mile strip, okay, where I can do anything. I can sell all the alcohol I want. I can gamble. The prostitutes, everything is there. And just give me the legislation to back it. The guy gave me, it wasn't going to cost Nevada anything. So he goes to the mafia. Give me all the money. In 3 years, you'll make your money back. Mafia said, sure. He did it looks good. They gave him the money. But, you know, come with the mafia. 3 years, they didn't make their money back, so they killed him. But that is the origin of Las Vegas, right? And if you take Las Vegas out of Nevada, the state will die off. And if you go to Vegas today, you still have that strip. The airport, everything is on that 1 mile, right? Now it's a huge city now, but it started off from there. So it's a draw, right? London without traffic will die off. So Cross River is not like Benin, where people, I'm going to Onitsha, let me just pass through here and see Osagie and have lunch in Osagie. No, if you have no business, you don't go there.
Shout out to the 052.
You know, it's not like Kaduna where you're going to Kano and all that. You have to have business there. And that's why, you know, the state thrives during Carnival. Everybody's there, right? Now, if Tinapa were working, what you experience in Carnival will be year-long. In fact, we estimated about, conservatively, 3 million people visiting. If 3 million people are visiting and on the average they spend 100,000 naira, right? That's 300 billion naira. If you take the multiplier effect of at least times 4, that's 1.2 trillion naira. That's about a quarter of our budget already. That's a lot of money moving around the state. So I think, you know, ignorance, but a lot of it is selfishness. Or if he succeeds, Donald Duke will be remembered. That's really the bottom line.
Was it true that you also had it in mind that you will be able to attract a port to Calabar? A port to Calabar?
There is a port in Calabar.
Oh, okay.
In fact, it would have activated that port. It's a Calabar port. It would have activated the port.
Okay. I mean, but what was the design thinking, you know, when you got into, you know, into Cross River, Power and Cross River? Why was it tourism? Why was that the first thing? What inspired it? Did you read something? How did you
Because I know the state probably better than the palm of my hands. I was in charge of budget. I was in charge of planning. I was in charge of its financing. I didn't just wake up one morning and say, I want to be governor. In fact, I didn't really want to. I didn't think I could be governor at the time, right? But when we talked about it, I seemed to be the best prepared person for it. So I put together a blueprint of what the state should be doing. I looked at the state, 23,000 square kilometers of land, 3 million people. We have our land masses from the mangrove swamp straight through to the sub-savanna, and we have temperate at Obudu. It's an incredible place for agriculture because it's sparsely populated. So you can have 10, 15,000. In fact, I made an offer to the Malaysian government to give them 250,000 hectares of land for oil palm. They came. But I'll tell you, that's another story. So very few states can boast of that, okay? Then the other thing was tourism, and folks say, why tourism? For the reasons I said, I needed to draw people to come in. We have great sites. Obudu is amazingly beautiful. We have a very hospitable culture, okay? And it's a beautiful state. It's scenic, the rivers, the mountains and all that. It's beautiful. But above all, because of the innate nature of the people, right, tourism would thrive, as it did. So we took those two planks. Of course, the folks, they didn't understand. Nobody is now that we're talking tourism. In 99, tourism, are you crazy? You know? But we went through the arduous task of not only preparing the sites, but preparing the people, training. A lot of training went in. We sent trained the trainers in Trinidad and all over the place. We got USAID to partner with us and train people. And very soon they saw the results. People were making money. And that changed the mindset. I tell a story of a guy, because we didn't have enough hotels. So we encouraged people to make rooms available in their homes. So you find that at Christmas, people who had spare rooms, they come to the tourism bureau, we go and inspect, the rooms are good, the place is decent, you know, there's water because we had very good urban water supply, you have a generator that works and all that. Folks are making a lot of money from it.
This was Airbnb before Airbnb.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, Godwin Osagie said to me once that you guys were way, way ahead of your time, you know. So people keyed in. I know a lady who, till date, Christmas, she makes almost like a tanker full of zobo, right? And this, on the day of Carnival, she's just selling it. And she says the amount of money she makes on that is that takes her through the year. That pays her fees, her kids' fees and all that. What hotels make in the month of December is probably more than they make throughout the year. So once it started working, and we were the only state that had internal flights. We had flights from Calabar to Baby Airstrip, the only state in the country. So you could say, I'm going to Ogoja and I'll take a flight and all that. So that created a lot of pride. Then you land in Baby, which is in the middle of nowhere, and the community comes and welcomes you with their traditional dance, and you take a bus 40 minutes and you're at the bottom of the mountains and you go on a cable car. It was amazing. Sandra Obiago said to me, she took her kids there, and after 3 days, they said to her, Mommy, we don't want to go back to Nigeria. She said, guess what? You're in Nigeria, you know? But it created a lot of hope. We're better than this. That's the point I'm making. We're better than what we present ourselves to be. We all know that, but somehow we don't seem to be able to get it right. You arrive at our airports, they're smelly, the lights are off, the air conditioning is not working. The lounge we had at Baby Airstrip was functional. It was small but beautiful with a lot of cultural artistry and all that, and people just loved it. We upgraded the Calabar Airport as a state. It was a federal institution, but we upgraded the Calabar Airport. It was nice, it was clean. Look, I talked about the will. If you don't have that drive, because anyone can regurgitate a vision, but what makes a vision work is the strategy and the will, the determination. I'm going to make it happen. You must see this as your life's work. This is why God created me.
How did the agriculture, how did the palm oil thing go? Because I understood that plantain, banana, I think oil palm too, you know, increase productivity in Cross River.
Yeah. We encouraged, you know, NIFO, the Nigerian Institute of Oil Palm Research. 90% of the seedlings came to Cross River in my time. We literally bought all. We actually got them to set up a seedling multiplication plant in Calabar because we were depriving the rest of the country of oil palm seedlings. And we gave these seedlings free of charge to anyone who wanted, as long as you were going to grow it in the States. So you had people with 5 hectares, 2 hectares, and all that. That was good. Then I befriended Malaysia. I met, he's now back as Prime Minister Mahathir. And then he was in his 70s, he's now in his early 90s. But he just took a liking to me. And he got a company called Sami Darby to come in and do they wanted to do about 50,000 hectares of oil palm. We were giving the land free, right? And the argument I gave was, oil palm is indigenous to our parts. Yeah. It's not indigenous to Malaysia. So if you get the seedlings of oil palm from Malaysia and bring here, you'll be transferring diseases because it's not indigenous to them. Oh. So they came in, they liked it, the soil was perfect, they did everything was okay. But the reason why they didn't invest was they said our productivity is too low, which is a very nice way of saying you're very lazy. In other words, how much work goes in a day in Malaysia
versus
and they said they were afraid that if they have to push the locals to work like they work in Malaysia, they will have industrial problems. So they backed out because again, the Prime Minister explained to me that his people are not used to working outside the environment. So they're comfortable going to Malaysia, to Singapore, Indonesia, but Africa was strange to them. And they saw this as a big, big problem, you know, where a foreigner goes in and there's hostility and all that. So they backed out. Wow. But they kept on selling the concept that this would be a wonderful place to do this because we were giving out land free. In Indonesia, they were getting a hectare of land for $1 million. So if you want, it was that expensive. Yeah. But here we're saying, take it free because you can't take the land away and you'll employ people and all that. Yeah. So, but we're still the largest. We have, there's a couple of companies, a couple of companies that are there now. We're still the largest producers of oil palm in the country. Oh, really? Right. Okay. We're the largest producers of cassava also in the country. Bananas and plantains. Yeah. You see trucks and trucks. So agriculture did pretty good. Tourism also did pretty good. But that will to push it to the next level and keep on pushing. If we're sustained it, by now we would have been a self-supporting state.
What would be your strategy to run this across, other states?
Every state must discover its competitive advantage. That's the first thing. Do a SWOT analysis. What is your competitive advantage? If you take Lagos, for instance, Lagos just needs to invest in its infrastructure, right? And have the right policies because the base is already there and ensure that there's more energy coming in. So get more gas. And now they have discovered oil, right? But try and get gas fields so that if you have a lot more energy coming into Lagos, the companies will thrive and employ more people and all that. Lagos is in a very, and now I want to talk about this before I talk about the other thing. Yeah. Lagos is in a very precarious position. It's actually on a cliff. 3,000 square kilometers of land. It's just a small dot, right? It's the size of one of my local governments in Cross River, with 24 million people. Easily about 15% of, maybe 12, 13% of Nigeria's population resides on 1/308th the land mass of the whole country. And every year, 750,000 people come into Nigeria is going to drown Lagos. Yeah. So what you see here is temporary, is very temporary prosperity. So Lagos has to do something really quickly. But you see, whatever it does is still going to be short term. Nigeria has to thrive for Lagos to survive. Yeah. So it's very important that Nigeria gets it right. Otherwise, those 750,000 will keep on coming and it can't work. Alimosho, for instance, is more populous than the whole of Cross River.
Oh God!
Meant to be where Lagos State wins its elections. I mean,
but beyond winning elections, the people are frustrated. They're not doing anything and all that. So
Lagos will cannibalize itself.
But on the rest of the country, there's no part of this country that does not have strengths, right? You just got to do your SWOT analysis. Like I said for Cross River, we did agric and all that. Every state should do that and focus on that. Indeed, if I were president, I'll sit down with the governors and say, guys, let's work on a program 10 years. Where in 10 years, you will not need any subvention from the federal government, right? That should be the basis of our restructuring because I believe we need to restructure the country without leaving anyone behind because the fear of restructuring is that some people are going to have so much and some will have nothing. But you've got to design a system where you can build a country without leaving anyone behind, right? Yeah. So every state, tell me what's your strength. I give you 3 months. Go work with the best consultants, come up with your strengths, let's work out something, I'll give you the support, to build it, and your strength could be anything. You could be a state that has so much limestone and say, okay, I want to be number one, whatever it is, but let's build that strength. Look at Singapore. If a country like Singapore can do well and thrive, we all can do well and thrive. So it's no excuse. It's actually mental laziness.
Again, and I keep asking this question.
You're going back to your first question.
No, not the first one. Not the first one. But how again? Because see, it's 36 states.
How am I going to do it?
You have the ideology, right? But it's 36 states, and it's not a case where
you can't do it alone.
You can't do it alone, and if you tell someone or one of the governors, your IGR, internal generated revenue, how do we up it? It's really low, and the guy's like, bro, I don't know.
I just did allocation every month.
I need the allocation every month. It's not like we're all in one room and we just make this decision like this.
That's why I said.
It's complex and tough.
I said to you, if I were the leader, right, I'll call the governors. We'll sit down. 90 days, 120 days. Go with your consultants. Come up with what would engage the vast majority. What do you need to trigger off your state and make and create jobs, because it's all about jobs. Create jobs and make you guys economically independent. I'll work with them. Not all will succeed. Some will, some will not. But those that succeed will inspire those that do not succeed and all that. You look at America. If Mississippi were a country of its own, it would probably be like Nicaragua, one of those places. But it belongs to this union, okay? My tourism drive in Nigeria was not based on expatriates coming in. It was based on Nigerians coming in to spend money. Yeah. So there's a value in being part of this union, okay? But tell me what you want to do. We talked about bananas and all that. You can grow on that. You can grow on that. For a long time, Cameroon depended on bananas and pineapples and all that. One of the largest pineapple plantations in Africa is actually in Cross River. It's a Dangote farm, not Aliko, his brother, Sani. It's a massive plantation. So it could be that simple. It doesn't have to be anything complex. Costa Rica, all those countries, it was bananas. Once you can key into a market. So if you take a state like Bielsa, for instance, okay, they have oil, but assuming they didn't have oil, and you go to Del Monte or one of these guys and say, listen, we're going to give you all this land, right? We want to grow bananas. We're by the port. We come in. Working alongside with the federal government, giving the necessary financial guarantees and all that. So it doesn't have to be the big stuff. The critical thing is that your people are engaged in some activity or the other. For a long time, when I wanted to be governor, I remember a gentleman asking me, what is the preoccupation of your people in your state? And I thought about it. Yeah. I said, civil service. That got me thinking. They influence everything, and it shouldn't be. Because you have human beings, they're not doing anything. Get them engaged.
Let's talk about education. It's at a very dilapidated state right now. Across, all secondary, primary, of course, university. Try to employ people every month. It's frustrating.
The quality that comes out.
Yeah. It keeps dropping, still having, people are still, the universities are still offering courses that
are not relevant.
Not relevant in society anymore. Journalism schools are still not even offering digital, digital packets.
Journalism.
It's really backward.
One of the sad things about our nation is our failure to invest in ourselves. Yeah. Right. And it tells in every sector. Between 79, the next major investment in power was 2001, 2002. Right. So whereas you hear in other countries, they're upgrading constantly. I think China, they say, adds about 1,000 megawatts every month or some ridiculous number like that, But for almost 20 years, we added nothing to the system. And the same thing is happening in education. Our glory days in education were in the 60s, into the 70s. Then there's a population explosion, and we didn't invest.
Yeah.
The schools are not inspiring, and the environment under which you study works. The teachers themselves need to be upgraded.
Yeah.
The teachers don't even know what to teach. The curriculum is, like you said, is
Outdated.
outdated and does not prepare you for the currency of the world. The teaching methods, of course, are outdated. Recently, we had a team of surgeons from the United States, and my wife was conducting a medical mission. So they went to the University of Calabar to observe an operation going on, and they said the methods we're using were what they were using in the 60s. So an operation that took almost 90 minutes, they said today will take 15 minutes. And that is telling, because the longer you put someone under anesthesia, the more risky it is, right?
That's what keeps people.
So a lot of folks passed on all that. So what would have taken 15 minutes, we do 90 minutes.
Dosing them with anesthetic.
And we keep on having to dose and dose, and the person may, depending on the person's threshold, the person may pass on. So we have not upgraded. If anything, our nation has deteriorated really fast. They say you've got to invest 25% of your GDP in education to bring it up to speed. That's, again, subjective number. What is 25? What is your GDP and all that? But regardless of the amount, right, we first have to do a study of the infrastructure that is required. We need to do a study on the number of teachers that are required. And the manpower is there. We have a lot of folks that come out of universities who have no jobs, right? That youth core year that is wasted, as far as I'm concerned, could be used to retrain them to go into the teaching field. You need to make teaching attractive. And this is not theory. I'll tell you what we did in Cross River. You need to make teaching attractive, and you also make it accountable. Now, how do you make teaching attractive? In Cross River, my example was this. I took them off the tax profile. So teachers weren't paying taxes any longer. That made a lot of people, because it's difficult to tell civil servants convert and become teachers. They don't want to do it. But once I took them off the tax break, every civil servant wanted to be a teacher.
It's attractive,
Immediately, because you're earning 25% more immediately.
Yeah.
Then I added 10,000 naira as allowances, right, in the urban areas and 15 in the rural areas. So some were okay to go work in the rural areas. Then I now ask them, every 2 years, I must recertify you. So I got University of Ibadan to come up with a program where every 2 years you take an exam. If you flunk that exam twice, you're out.
You're out.
Okay? Then I said, if you go for an exam, like school cert, and less than 80% pass, say mathematics, in a school, that maths teacher has to go.
Not in our schools.
So that is where accountability comes in.
Yeah.
To me, there's no bad student. They're bad teachers. Because teaching is personal. You need to interface. So we did a study. How many schools will we require in our state? We found that we needed to build 250 new secondary schools and about 300 new primary schools to ensure that we don't have more than 30 students in a class, 3 arms to a class, 540 students in a school. That is a number where you have a principal who can manage a school.
Yeah, who knows?
Who would see a student and say, you are one of my students in town, and all that. My first shocker as governor was, I go to visit a school like Hopewater, which is one of the most elite schools in the state, and you see 100 kids in a class. The teacher is just there writing. The kids are just doing their own thing. I said, this won't work. So the first thing we did, all the schools that belong to the missionaries, give it back to them. Because it's unheard of. Teaching is everybody's business.
Yeah.
The folks who invested in teaching, on education, you seize it from them and ask people to invest. It won't work. So we gave it to them. We pay them some compensation. But we set standards. You're not going to have more than 30 students in a class, maximum. And that became the standard in school. So we started building new schools. We needed to have a prototype design for the schools, and we started, replicating the schools to reduce the numbers, and of course renovating even the existing schools that were in horrible conditions. Then you deal with the teaching. Then you look at the curriculum. The sad thing is that as a government state, you don't have control over the curriculum. It's a national curriculum. Yeah. So nationally, you've got to look at a curriculum that is functional. The good thing about our world today, you don't have to think hard. Just go to Germany and adopt their own curriculum. That's all. Adopt the German curriculum. Copy and paste, and train the teachers to work with that curriculum, because the German curriculum, even the Chinese are adopting that curriculum. It's very practical. And you know that the world we're advancing into rapidly is a digital world. So coding, by the time you get to equivalent of SS3, you know how to code. That's how it works. And so you've got to revisit the entire curriculum, train the teachers to function within this curriculum, and make it worthwhile for people to want to be teachers, right? So if you're a teacher, you can be sure that in the next 5 years after teaching, you own a house, you have a car. Everybody will jump into it. And then I can demand that, look, if your students don't do well, you're going to lose all this, right? So how do you own a car and own a house? You have a special mortgage arrangement for them, where the guy can easily own a house or a car. Again, we're going to talk about housing, and I want us to talk about housing and all that. But those are sort of incentives you put in place. The point is, I believe education should be free. I believe that every brain that is untrained is a drain on society. Because if I have an untrained brain, right, and I have no skills, I'm going to be depending on and if I'm depending on you, I'm a parasite. I'm taking from you without giving. So you've got to make China's aspire is a word, for each one of us to be productive. By the time you get to SS3, you have a skill. No matter how modest or menial it may be, it could even be gardening. But if all else fails, you can do something. Yeah. So it's plumbing, masonry, carpentry, this. In the digital world, coding, you can do all that. That makes the fixation of university education reduced. So you've got to do a lot of vocational training, right? Mm-hmm. And people are not going to be too fixated about going to universities because university education is expensive.
Very, very.
Right? That one, we must have a way of paying for that. It might not be free. But the first 18 years of your life, because after 18 you're an adult and you can determine what you want to do. But until the point where you get to that stage, you must be in school. It is compulsory. You know, once I was in a Walmart store in Houston, and the police were running after this small boy. Really running after him. Police, big guys, about 10 of them running after this. So after a while, when they caught the guy, I walked up to him and said, "What did he do?" He said he should be in school. The boy was running through the aisle. You know, this boy probably was about 8 or 9. Yeah. And you had it, in fact, the police guys were out of breath, you know, they were big guys. Oh my God, he was out of school. So they were going to take him to his parents. Why isn't he in school? That's in a society that's is. So every child must be in school. It's not easy, it's expensive, but it's an aspiration. We should work towards it.
Why do we have a problem with long-term planning?
Because we're short-term in nature. We're short-term in nature. Even in our personal life, we don't plan long-term. You know?
I want to ask you about the reserve fund in Kosovo.
Why do you want to depress me?
No. Which went on to save the other governments.
The entire premise of it is this: you're talking about long term and short term. Yeah. That's it. Yes, the state had no money, but I said even though we don't have money, we must save. Yeah. So we put a small amount aside every month. 50 million naira was all we put aside every month, and it was growing fast. And we passed a law that no one would touch that money for the first 15 years. And thereafter, if you had to touch it, all former governors will sign on, House of Assembly, everybody who is anybody in the state will sign on. It was to be made impossible for you to do. And it has to be strictly an emergency. It's the first government, federal, state, local, that had come up with that sort of thing. I remember going to Osagie and asking him to sign an ISPO in perpetuity. That means before the money comes to us in the state, they're taking 50 million. And he said, "What's the meaning of that?" He said, "Anyways, your money, take." You know? So we did that. But we wanted to build a reserve. So states live from hand to mouth, right? And the good thing about that, if it becomes substantial, it's it's like a sovereign fund, because it can become convertible in all sorts of things. Yeah. In fact, when Rotimi Amechi had problems with the federal government when he was governor, because he had bought into that's what kept him going.
Okay.
You know, he had that fund,
Wonderful.
you know, and he had a lot of money. So he used to put aside ₦1 billion every month. Every month, you know. We tried to sell it to Akwa Ibom. By the time the governor, Akpabio, got around to it, it was late, you know. And if they had it, they now have some issues. If they had it, they wouldn't have had those issues today. But guess what, you know, your successor comes in and says, why are we saving all this money? And even though we thought we had a watertight agreement, politicians are politicians. They just called the House of Assembly, they just signed off everything, changed the law and squandered the money. It doesn't exist anymore.
How much was the state getting as allocation from the federal government at that time?
It varies. When I came in as governor, it was about 500-600. By the time I left, it was slightly over $1 billion.
Moving back to education, if you become president today or in 2019, what will you do about NYSC? Will you scrap it or will you reform it?
You participated in the program.
Let's just make that clear.
For context, please.
No, the rules were different in my time, right? Because immediately after I graduated, I went to law school. Okay. Then I went for my master's. Okay. By the time I came back, I was over 30. You know, I came back and literally went into government. And so I got a valid exemption.
We've been seriously reading up on, you know,
I got a valid exemption.
Because I don't know if you heard one minister, but
Well, I don't know. There's I don't know. It's, you know, it's not everything you read out there that is true. They said it was fake and all that. I really doubt that. But I know the person involved. I know she lived abroad for a long time. So if she came in after the age of 30, because you see, the thing about Youth Corps, the government really couldn't support it. So there are so many exemptions. If you're over 30, if you went to a polytechnic, you went to this, you know. So it's really not, it doesn't capture everybody from tertiary institutions. And in some parts of the country where the average age in university is late 20s, a lot of people go through and, you know, and all that. Anyway, you need to reform it. You need to make it productive. Going into that service, like I said, you could train them to become teachers if you make it attractive enough. People can give 10 years of their life to teaching before going into other things. Okay, and if it's attractive, a lot of people do that. You could also recruit people from the security agencies from Youth Corps, because part of the problem with our security is that our crime is more sophisticated than the people who are to monitor the crime. So you need sophisticated minds, people who understand cyber crime, who know forensic and this and all that. And you can't get someone who has school set or attempted and say become a policeman. First of all, at that level, the pride is very low. So he can do anything. But when you're a graduate, you know, you want to carry yourself at a certain level. And graduate unemployment is so high. So I think the entry qualification for our security agencies should be, you know, graduate. And that would encourage people to want to move in. And once you, not just being a graduate, you've also gone to do aptitude tests. Right. For me, before you're promoted in the service, you need to pass an aptitude test. Because right now in the service, you do 3 years, they move, 3 years, you move. No, you need to do an aptitude test because society is sophisticated. So you need to be thinking in a particular manner and all that. I tried to do GMAT and I said, okay, this is serious stuff. But that should be part of it, you know. So you can reform it because it provides you a ready pool of manpower. But those guys go through all that. It's almost wasted. They come out after orientation, they're looking for work and all that. It shouldn't be that way. You should recruit them immediately and get them into that. Like I said, if you make teaching an attractive profession, a good number of them will want to teach, at least for the first 10 years or something, while they're trying to sort out their lives and all that.
There are a lot of professions that aren't attractive, and that if they are made attractive, people will, you know,
jump on it.
I was talking to my wife and we were discussing about nannies. It's very, very funny how the only available nannies we have now are from Benin Republic or from Togo, right? If you talk to these nanny agencies.
I talked earlier about skills, right? Yeah. Even being a nanny is a skill because there's some psychology, there's some. So you give skills in all its ramifications. You know, I was talking to my daughter about training, butler training, house helps, housekeeping, and all that. And we need to open a school for that vocation. We recruit people who have no experience, and you find that their bosses are very hard on them, but they have no experience. They're just hustling, right? They're learning on the job. So if you open a school where you spend 3 months training the person to be a housekeeper, how to make a bed, how to tidy, how to receive people and all that, because it's a job. They add value to it. It would help. We should do stuff like that. People just jump into jobs to survive. People, I'll tell you a story. I have this driver, and I know he didn't read the highway code.
No way.
But he's driving me. So I'm sitting at the back watching him drive. And I know that I said, after a while I called his name, I said, "You bought your license?" He said, "No, sir, I paid for it." You must give something to skills. Driving is a skill, right? So everything, there must be training that goes into all that. No matter how, like I said, no matter how menial or modest it may be, there must be training.
Okay.
And that provides scope. If today, talking to your wife, you say, okay, you want to start a school where you're going to train people in housekeeping and all that, and you're able to market it. All these people in affluent areas like this, they'll come. They'll send. There are people, and you go through this course, and they teach you how to do these things. I'm saddened when I go to the home of the very elite in our society, and I see Filipinos.
Yeah, it's a trend.
And I'm sure you see that. It's now like
it's a thing.
It's a very sad thing. How did the Filipino come in here?
Yeah.
How did they get their working permits? What's happening here?
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen in the homes of people who are in government. Now, I know a lady who was being screened in the United States as a secretary in in the government, and she had an undocumented alien working for her, right? And that's it. She lost it. Yeah. She couldn't get it. Here, you bring Filipinos to do that?
This is Nigeria.
In a country where they're looking for jobs?
You, by popular opinion, you're one of the excellent governors.
Popular opinion?
Yeah, like
I want to be an excellent president.
Exactly. And were you somehow, did it hurt you that you weren't rewarded with, like the vice presidency or even the presidency?
Yes, I was sad. That's a human emotion. But I moved on. The circumstance was sadder still because Umaru really wanted to work with me. On 3 occasions he came to me, "I hope you know we're working together. You'll be..." And I said, "Sure, but is it your decision to make?"
Exactly.
And he said, "Don't worry, he likes you." I said, "Okay, go ask." So that's it.
Yeah. I want to talk about power, big problem. We've talked about the gas turbines, how if we actually use the pipelines, the gas turbines, how we can reduce the use of diesel, then increase productivity, and so on and so forth. Fundamental problems have not been able to be fixed. Fashola came in as the minister. Well, he has 2 other ministries to handle.
2 big ministries.
Yeah, big housing, works and labor.
Works and
housing rather. And then power. So I'm of the opinion, I don't think one man should have all those ministries on his table.
One of the flaws of this they were not prepared for governance. It's the Constitution, whether you like it or not, you're going to have at least 36 ministers because the Constitution says there must be a minister from every state.
Yeah.
So if you have a minister for every state, just create 36 ministries, right?
Yeah.
So all this minister of is rubbish. I'll put one man in charge because the buck ends there. So actually, you minister of power, okay? And you build up your team on that. If you look at a ministry like transport, you can create 3 or 4 ministries there. You can have a ministry of railway, you can have a ministry of internal waterways, you can have aviation, right? And you can have a ministry for port services. There are 4 ministries there. Why would I create 4? You will not employ more people because there are already people working in those sectors. You just have to. But what it does is it creates focus. So the guy can focus on his sector. And I'm going to give him a target. So if you're a minister of power and you want to talk about power,
Yeah.
and you say, okay, guy, you're a minister of power. And first of all, you don't just take a man and say, okay, come and be minister. Then I sit down and say, you go to health. No. What is your flair? Okay? I know half will say petroleum. Even the man that just studied English will say petroleum. I say, okay, fine. Give me 3 things that you think you can excel in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't give a man a responsibility that he's not prepared for. You must give someone what his flair is. So you pick power, and let's have a program for power. I want to hear from you. Go write me a 2-3 page memo on, in the next 36 months, how we could solve this power conundrum that we find ourselves in. So you look at it, you study it, this is you. All right, what would it cost? Like I said, we're an energy-rich country. It's really, really amazing that we could be so rich and so poor, you know? Because the whole country is energy. Gas, petroleum, coal, you know, sunlight. What is your problem? So he gives you a program. This is what it will cost me, okay? And I'll hold you to it. You know, and I did it in Cross River. You sit down, this is what we're going to do. I took charge of finance because usually they'll tell you there's no money. So I make sure I give you the money, right? But if you don't attain the targets, if your target, for instance, is I want to do, you're in charge of road construction and you're supposed to do 4,000 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers every year for, you know, and 6 months into the year, you have not done 200 kilometers. I know you can't do it. So I remove you and put someone else. So if you tie performance, right, to longevity in office, people will sit up, and that's the consequence I'm talking about. So the guy goes there, he fails monumentally, and he's still there.
He's still there.
That's wrong. Because keeping him there, you're shortchanging the rest of the country. Maybe you like him, he's your friend, he's sycophantic enough and hails you all the time. You don't want to lose him. But the country is paying for that. So you must put targets. I told you earlier about my relationship with Malaysia. I went to visit a minister in Malaysia at the instance of the Prime Minister. And he said to me, the Prime Minister's office called that I should meet with you, but I can't meet you with you this week. You'll have to come next week. And I have to go back to Nigeria. He said, I'm sorry, I can't see you this week. And I asked why. He said, this week we have a cabinet meeting which I have to give my scorecard. And if I fall below par, I've lost my job.
Oh.
It's that serious. And the Prime Minister wouldn't say that because
he had a meeting.
you know? So I had to spend an extra week sightseeing just to wait for this guy because I needed him. He was in charge of investment, foreign investments, and wanted them to come into investments and sectors. So it's that serious. You need to, the failure of consequences is the biggest problem we have in Nigeria. Look at 200 people died in Benue, in Plateau. Nobody is being asked any questions. In that state, you have a police commissioner, you have a DPO, you have police intelligence officers, you have brigade commander, you have brigade intelligence, you have SSS, you have all these people. So how come 200 people were slaughtered and you guys don't know, and what have you done thereafter? For me, immediately they will proceed on administrative leave while I investigate. And if I find that they are culpable one way or the other through omission or commission, I would charge them to go for criminal negligence. People died. And if you do that in one state, believe me, everybody will sit up. Everybody will want to know what is going on in this state because my job is tied onto it. But it happened in Benue, nothing happened. It happened in Plateau, nothing happened. It happens in Taraba. It happens every day. Yesterday, 37 people, I'm told, were killed in Zamfara. Nothing happened. Nobody says a word about it. But you have all these people who are paid to protect us.
You know, some would say it's, like we've said before, it's a complex problem. You try to hold one person accountable, but because that person is tied to another person, who's tied to another person, who's tied to you.
You have to you have to unshackle them from you. When you're a leader, there must be a healthy gulf, right? You can't be doing party when you're there. You don't do party. You must be almost unemotional about this. Yes, you're my friend. I once fired a friend of mine who was very, very close to me, very close. I fired him, and the next day I went to have dinner in his house. I said, if you like, poison me, but you know. And today we're great friends. And he admitted that he fell short of it. When Calabar started as the cleanest city in the country and blah, blah, in my time, it wasn't easy. Because getting people to reverse or to change their way of living is difficult. So I told things were really falling apart in sanitation. So I called the commissioner responsible for environment. I said, listen, this is a problem. Tell me what you require. I'll give you everything you want, but in 30 days, if it doesn't change, you're off. 30 days, nothing will change. I fired him. You know, we used to have Okadas and all that in the state. They stopped it, but it's still, I think it's a very poor decision because they couldn't manage it. So we set up a commission to look at that. And the Okadas, I don't know if you were in Cross River, the Okadas, the bikers, all their commercial bikers, their tank, fuel tank was yellow. That makes you know that this is commercial. And each one had a reflective jacket and a number and carried 2 helmets. And if you're private, you must have a helmet and a spare because you could give a ride to someone. Now, to enforce it, and this is where the enforcement, we got the police, we bought them pickups, and for each bike they catch flouting the rules, there's 5K. Oh, the police loved it. Oh, everybody wanted to be on that beat. Because this is now legit money coming in.
Yeah.
After a while, the stadium was a sea of motorcycles seized, but within 6 months, everybody complied, and it was beautiful. Because you need the service of Okadas. They go into areas that cars can't go in. We have not developed the state or the city or our environment to a point where you can discard them. There's a need for them, but they need to be regulated, and there must be consequences for falling apart. And after a while, you know, everybody conformed. The women had a problem wearing the helmet and all that because of the wig, but later on they learned. They go around with a scarf. They put the scarf, then they put the thing on top of their heads. You know,
because it's for your safety.
You must. And if you don't, and you know, we even got the army involved in catching people, you know, flouting the rules. And it will cost you 25,000 naira to retrieve your bike because you've got to pay 15,000 to get the helmet, to get and all that. Then you've got to pay another 10,000 as penalties. 5, of course, will go to the police, right? So within no time, everybody complied. Yeah. And if you're robbed on a bike, you easily know, because you know if the guy had a red reflector jacket with number 9 on it. So once you do that, we know who was riding that bike and the registration and all that. So these things can be done, but the will is not there. Unfortunately, the will is not there.
Let's go back to power. If you had a conversation with Fashola, what would it be like? What would be the advice? You know, we've said, okay, set up these systems, but again, we do know it's more complex than that, right? There are some places that don't even receive power. There are some places where transformers have been bought, but they've not been shipped or delivered.
I think the unbundling was wrongly done. They just sold it to, say, you have Benin Disco taking care of Delta, this, that, no. I think actually they would have unbundled it first to the states, right? Then the state can concession it to a private company. Yeah. Right, rather than unbundling it to regions and all that. That's the first thing. But give it to the states. Why? The biggest problem they have, the private companies, is collecting revenues.
Yes.
So if I sold power, if you have the generation company, you have the transmission company, and you have the distribution company, you meter each one. So Ugeli is generating.
And that's where Steve's wife's from.
Oh, okay. I'm coming closer home. So you have, between the generation and the transmission, there is metering. So in a month, I know so much power came from here to here. Between the transmission and the distribution, there's also a meter. So I know that from there's so much was consumed. Okay? The state is the primary responsible agent. So the state can, through its National House of Assembly, decide that we're going to sell a unit of power for X. Every state can decide how much it wants to charge. Okay? But the money from the transmission company should be a national thing because transmission goes from state to state. And I'll talk about that. Now, if a state doesn't pay, you have access to its federation accounts. You deduct at source. Okay? Today, the companies are stuck. They don't collect monies from the consumers, and they have recourse to nobody, right? So let me.
And they can't enforce.
There's nothing they can
other
do.
than
So they're owing the banks.
Yeah.
They're owing the banks, and very soon the federal government will be forced to pay off the banks because some banks are overly leveraged on this. So we ought to have had a system where you give it to a state so that there's a state responsibility. So let's take Cross River. We did a lot in terms of electrification in Cross River. When I became governor in 1999, only 15% of the state was on the national grid. We took that to about 80%, okay? Now, if Cross River, if we had unbundled to the state, we'll have that incentive to put power to do the 20%. Now they don't have that incentive. I've spoken to governors. We would have been the first state to have 100% electricity. Even Lagos doesn't have 100%. Would have been the first state to have it. But once they unbundled it, there was no incentive because how do I get my money back and all that? That's one. But by the time the power comes into the state and is metered, and you can have several points of metering, we know how much power was consumed in that state that month. And this is the value of it. Okay? So, Cross River, pay up. If Cross River is wobbling, we'll just take it from AFAC. That will cause the state to go look for the money. And there's a profit to the state too, because if the state gets if it gets to the state at X, the state can add Y and make some money from it. So it becomes a revenue source for that. I think that's where they missed the unbundling, exercise. Today, it's very difficult to reverse it. But I talked of a national grid for power. If you were able to do that and there's gas throughout the country, then you can have turbines dotted around the country. Because one of the failures of our system is that we take power from Ughelli, for instance, and we're transmitting it to Kano, and all that. No, power should be localized. Anything that is essential must be localized. So water, for instance, is an essential. You don't pump water from Lagos to Ibadan. Everything has to be local. So any essential thing must be localized. Education should be localized. Hospitals should be localized. Anything that you consider essential should be localized. So if you have,
go ahead.
If you have power, if you have a gas grid throughout the country, then you can have turbines dotted around, and you can have transmission lines that are also localized. They call them embedded or something like that, right? So Lagos would have its own transmission system, and you feed the system and all that. That's what we should design and work towards it.
And that helps for maintenance and, all those other things.
So, but now you have what they call national failure. So the whole system collapses.
You don't know who's responsible.
But everything, so you must localize power because anything in life that is essential should be locally available. That's a norm.
Sorry, because I want to piggyback off that, my next question would be security. Would you say we need state police?
Yes, but it's policing, not police. It's the same thing, but I'll explain it.
It's a bit technical when the state government is in charge of.
No, but you have it also at the national. Look at what's happening in Ekiti. They're harassing man. So you're now saying that only one person should harass everybody. That's what it means. Okay, the Constitution says that the governor is the chief security officer, but he has no real authority. Okay, if the governor is friendly with the president and you have a police commissioner who's not performing, then he can do something. In my state, I had a police commissioner who didn't know what time of day it was. So I told the president that I can't stand this guy, and they removed him. But it shouldn't be that way. But it's even beyond that. And just because one man is going to abuse the system doesn't mean you condemn the value chain, okay? You have to look at it from another point of view. Ordinarily, you need one policeman per 100 people. So with a population of almost 200 million, you need 2 million policemen. Right now you have about 350,000. Half of them are following big men back and forth. One big man has like 4, some 6, bankers and all that. So effectively, you don't have more than 100,000 policemen doing police duties in Nigeria. Whereas you should have had 2 million. And there are two sides to it. You can have a commercial wing where they train people to do
private you know,
And the police will make money
guards
off
and all
it.
that. Yeah.
For one person that you pay 250,000 naira every month or 500,000 every month. So you only take because you really need it, not because you want to show you're a big man. And that's an arm that would bring a substantial revenue to them. But beyond that, because you cannot provide the number that is required, you look at your services. There's no state or local government that is not overpopulated. So you don't employ new people. From your rank of your service, you can easily in Cross River, I could have taken 2,000-3,000 people to do policing work. What is policing work? Gathering intelligence. You live amongst the people. You go for basic police training, 6 months course. Okay, I live in an area, and that's why we must stop all this barracks thing. Police shouldn't live in barracks. Police should live amongst the people. Because 80% of policing is intelligence gathering. So you live amongst the people.
Knowing the people.
You know the people. You know what they do. Without being obvious. But I know that you work with here, you know, everybody, I know what you do. And I know, because you've got to be proactive. So if it requires enforcement, I could liaise with the federal police to enforce. But if I see that these people who live in this house, they're not up to anything good, I'll tell the federal police, then we carry out a surveillance and all that. So it's all interactive, and that's why I said it's more of policing. It's more, you know, but to just say, no, you don't need all this. No, you're making a huge mistake. And you can limit state policing to sidearms, right? You know, have a Beretta here, just a pistol and all that. Because you need something. They need to just be more than talking. And that's not going to threaten anybody. You still can, it doesn't authorize the state government to import arms. That could be obtained centrally. Okay? But the primary purpose of state policing is intelligence gathering. And they must work in concert with the federal police for enforcement. It's almost inconceivable that you find state governments buying APC and all that. They can't afford it, you know, and all that. So they work together. So we shouldn't jettison it. We should look at the larger picture and see how we can tweak it to make it to work.
Okay. We're talking about your success in agriculture in Cross River. Now, on a larger scale, on a federal level, we also have a problem of we importing, you know, what we have local, you know, farmers for. How it's not possible to be importing in a world.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. So how do we help these farmers to produce more?
Look at your entire credit chain. As long as you see, when banks charge you 30% interest rate, no one is going to go into agriculture with
Still
that kind of thing.
problem,
So come back, if it's, for me, interest rate shouldn't exceed 7%. If I can get money at 7%, right, 5-10 year money, agri starts to make sense. You can do some agriculture on that sort of money. And right now we have different percentages for different functions. That's nonsense. Just make it affordable year round. So whatever I'm doing, if I'm doing IT and all that, you know this is, and that will enhance the productivity. But look at this country, every day we eat bread. I'm sure everybody in this room has eaten bread this morning. That's wheat. So it's imported, it's not local. We import about 4.5 million tons of wheat annually. How long are we going to do that? We're hemorrhaging. So if you can't grow wheat in Nigeria, find a substitute. Japan, they drink a lot of beer, more than we do here, but they don't use barley and hops, they use rice. That's what they have. In this country, we used to make star beer with maize and what's it called? Sorghum. Then we stopped it, and everybody went back to barley and hops. It's a waste. It also encourages ingenuity, being able to convert. There are other substances you can use in making bread, and you will not even know the difference. Do you know that North Korea, in the time of Kim Il-sung, the grandfather, were making clothes out of cassava? Here you have an excess.
Yes.
You know? So you have to, what is essential, and I said whatever is important, essential has to be local. You can't import food to eat. It's inconceivable. It's not, because it's not sustainable. Our population is 200 million. In 30 years it'll be 400 million. Are we still going to be importing food for this? Where's the money coming from? Where are the jobs? And by providing locally, you're creating opportunity, you're creating jobs. Look at Benue. All the juices we drink in this country, they're imported concentrate. But if you look at the middle belt, even as farther north, as far as Kebbi and all that, that is a citrus belt. Mangoes. If you go to, I don't know how well you know Kebbi State, you just see mangoes as far as the eyes can see. Nobody's using it for anything. So there are opportunities there, and that's why, when I said states have to find what they can do. A state like Kebbi can just say, okay, all we're going to do is mangoes. And they will pick and they'll get concentrate plants and they'll export mango concentrates around the world. That could be the major industry in that place. So you just got to think, you've got to get the states active. It can be done.
I want to talk about, we talked about like the interest rate from the banks. How easy or hard is it changing these policies?
It's regulation. It used to be regulated before.
Yeah.
Then a time came where we deregulated everything and the banks went haywire. And when the banking system was regulated, the country was better off. We were having industries. At that time, we dominated all of West and Central Africa markets. All these factories were springing up. That's when Agbara Estate, all those things were springing up because there was affordable credit. Then we had SAP. Then we deregulated everything. And they started closing. At that time, you had Adebowale Industries. I don't know if you remember. We had Adebowale, and he was making electronics, actually manufacturing electronic parts and components and all that. You had Frigidaire. They were making fridges and all that. You had, there was this fridge called this South. Everything was, well, manufacturing. Then we deregulated. It became industry. The interest rate could not support industry. So it was cheaper to import. So Adebowale Industries became Adebowale Superstores. It was now trading. Folks lost their jobs.
Important.
At that time, manufacturing was about 18% of our GDP. Today it's almost about only 5%. And that 5%, in the next 3 years, Dangote will be half of it. In the next 3 years, Dangote will be half of your manufacturing.
So the solution to importation, one, regulate interest rates.
You have to regulate interest rates. You can't allow people using other people's money charge unbridled when you want to grow your own economy. I'm not saying that you shouldn't make profit, but you can't make that. That's why the bankers live a lifestyle that is larger than life, larger than reality. So you see a bank MD with a convoy, you think he's a head of state or something moving around, you all see, they drive us from the road every day. I tell, okay, I used to be like that before, okay. You go to the airport, they go to the private side, they enter their private jet, they offer me leave from time to time, Governor, can I, but the system, a country that is doing so poorly, now banks are declaring their profits in dollars. Some of them tell they made profit of $1.2 billion. How?
It's also a trend in banks to not, hire full-time employees. I don't know if you know that. 60 to 70%.
They just get marketers.
And they're all on contract staff. They're all contract staff.
Yeah, so that they can dismiss you anyhow.
Yeah, so they don't pay, pension or they pay like very meager.
Because they're not regulated. They should be regulated. You're dealing with money.
But why do these problems exist right now?
You're dealing with other people's money. You must be regulated. Because you have a fiduciary responsibility. How can you take people's money and not be regulated? Why is it? There's a lot of compromise in the system. These same people are the ones that fund the elections. They're in bed with them. The governor of the central bank is a former governor, a former banker. It's all intertwined. It is a racket.
How do you break these traditional forces?
You're president. You're president. I said, your will. This is what I want. And the president has enormous powers if he knows what to do with it. But you have... And the job of a governor of central bank, with due respect to Godwin, and I think he's tried to evolve from being a banker to being an economic manager. But it's primarily the work of an economist, not the work of a banker, right? Because he has to look at the larger picture, how the banking and monetary system affects the entire economy, okay? So he would know, for instance, that these high interest rates are killing. And they know this because they have a window where they give funds at about 7% for industry. So high interest rate is affecting the economy. Why are you allowing the banks to charge so much? And that would inspire the banks to work harder, to give out loans to many people and monitor the loans. And, a young lady comes up to me. She wants to set up a chinching factory, right? but she wants me to gather a few of my friends to give her the money. I said, no, go to the bank. I won't be able to pay back the interest rate. But that business, she would have employed at least 10 people and added value to their lives. It's wrong. You need to do it. If you just you can't grow the economy without that. And this nation has to grow at 15%, like I said, annually for 10 years consecutively to recalibrate the system. And if you don't do it, you'll keep on having the Boko Harams, the herdsmen crisis and all that, because it's all economic, purely economic.
Let's talk about the population pop. Well, I think if I do remember, Spectator Index tweeted that we're the fastest growing, country.
That's why in 30 years we'll be 400 million. Our population will double in 30 years and will be the third most populous nation in the world after India and China. India would have overtaken China and will be the number 3. More than Indonesia, more than United States, more than Russia.
And currently we are the poorest country.
Poverty capital of the world.
That's the danger we're in.
So
that's why you can't take 19, right?
Can't play with it.
We must take it very seriously. It's a watershed here.
How do we solve this population growth? Is there even a solution to this to reduce it? We saw what China did.
Culturally, it's difficult to legislate and say you can't have more than. So you've got to work from a variety of sources. You've got to get the traditional rulers involved, encouraging the people that, look, I know our religion allows you to marry 4 wives.
But family planning.
Cool down.
Calm down.
So that is one way. You've got to get the people productive. Statistically, people who are busy don't breed as many. It's the people that don't have. There's a chap I know in Maiduguri, and he called me from time to time and he's looking for support. So I said, look, he said, I have 13 children. And I said,
13 children.
I said, Baba, why? I said, Baba, what are you doing with 13 children? I said, Allah gave it to me. I said, okay, I don't want to sound hypocritical about that. Pray to Allah to give you the means to look after them. You've got to educate them and all that. But beyond that, you've got to get people busy and working. Right? There was a survey that was carried out either in Ivory Coast or Senegal. And they realized that when electricity was put in a community and people had jobs and all that, birth rate dropped.
I wonder if when you were the National Economic Intelligence Committee under Abacha, if you guys had really any effect on decisions made economically, in the country.
A few. They had a few successes, but some failures too. For instance, it was during that time that we really let our refineries go under, and we just went into unbridled importation of petroleum products. But we were fighting that refineries should be maintained. We even proposed that don't privatize them, but privatize the management. So, for instance, we interviewed Total, Shell, and I think it was ELF at the time, but they're now called, I think the ELF, we interviewed of these all. We would refurbish the refineries and give it to them to manage. Of course, there was a lot of backlash because the NNPC boys wanted to manage the refineries themselves. We said, look, if you manage it, this is the result. You know that, I think Abacha just said, look, let's just import this thing. Because him and the family were making a lot of money.
Well, was there any reason why during his tenure, he never increased the price of fuel?
The subsidy, that's when the real subsidy started. And look, the subsidy is a racket. There's no way right now they pay over 1 trillion naira as subsidy. It's not true. That thing can be more than 400 or 500 billion, but they pay over 1 trillion. But you can't subsidize what you're importing. And like I said, you can fix those refineries, get the manufacturers to refurbish them as new, but the critical thing is who is going to manage them. If you give it to the same people, they'll run it down. Okay? So it's just a method of doing the business. But right now, NNPC really has no business managing those things. They should really privatize all of them.
Under Abdul Salam, what was any key role you guys played in
the
transition?
we worked with...
Can we start with, where were you when you heard that Abacha was dead?
I was in a friend's house at Norman Williams, and we were talking, and his name is Imam. He's from Kano, and he was very close to Abacha. And we were discussing, and a phone call came in, and he was on the phone, and I heard him shout, Allahu Akbar, and I said, what's wrong? He was shaken. He said, head of state die. He don't yamutu. I said, really? Which head of state? He said, Abacha. I said, how? So it was about 11 a.m. in that morning. He had died in the early hours.
Really?
Yeah. So
we heard in the evening. Through a party.
It was about 11 a.m. when I heard.
So the role you guys played under Abdulsalam?
It was different.
Okay.
Let me tell you a story. General Adisa was Minister of Works. And he sent a memo to Abacha. He wanted to import bitumen for road construction. Like I said, every memo that went to Abacha came to us for our opinion because he trusted Professor Aluko and the team. He didn't trust, Abacha didn't trust anybody. And you believe it or not, he abhorred corruption. Honestly. I mean, if you tell Abacha that this man is a thief and you can prove it, he will destroy you. So he sent this memo to us. All the memos automatically come. We write our opinion. So this memo comes, and Aloko looks at me and says, Donald, two of you go to Kaduna. Kaduna produces bitumen. And find out why we can't get bitumen in Kaduna. Why do we have to import? So I go to Kaduna and I find out that Kaduna is shut down because the bitumen tanks have not been evacuated because bitumen is a byproduct of Kaduna. Now, let me remind you, Kaduna doesn't use Nigerian crude. Kaduna uses Venezuelan crude, heavy crude. And one of the byproducts of heavy crude is bitumen. Even though we have the second largest natural occurring deposits of bitumen in the world after Canada.
God damn it.
If you go to parts of Ondo, bitumen is at the surface level. You can poke it and draw it up like this. We should be refining that thing. That's another story. So I go back, I write my report that the quality of bitumen he wanted to import was inferior to what we had in Kaduna. And if you don't evacuate the tanks in Kaduna, the refinery couldn't work. So we wrote our memo. And it was a very strong memo. For about a week or two, no response. Then one day, we were summoned to the villa. And we got into this. He said it was over a bitumen report. I had to go, so I need to be graphic here. There is Abacha sitting in the middle, head of state. To his right was Dia, who was chief of general staff. To his left was Abdulsalam, who was chief of defense staff. To Salam's left was General Buhari then, who was chairman PTF, because he's a bitumen user. To his left was Danny Tete, who was Minister of Petroleum. To Etete's left was Alhaji Bayero, who was GMD and MPC. To the right of Dia was General Adisa. To the right of Adisa were a series of executives from NNPC, the managing director of the Kaduna Refinery and all those guys. Then across the room there were we guys from the National Economic Union. So in the course of the meeting, Adisa was throwing tantrums that if he's not allowed to import bitumen, he won't do anything. Buhari didn't say a word throughout that meeting. And at a stage, Abacha, you could see that there was a deal going on because Adisa would throw tantrums like, oh, guy, this would a grandmother in the talk. If they not allow me import this, I know we'll do any work. And Abacha said, Adisa, cool down. So you could see that there was an understanding. And you could, maybe there was, there was a huge amount of bitumen they wanted to import. So at the stage, he takes a sheet of paper and he looks at it and says, Dan, that's Etete. You said the price of bitumen is XYZ, but what I'm saying here is different. Or am I wrong? Abdulsalam looks at him and says, how can you be wrong? You can't be wrong, sir. Even if you're wrong, you're right. Then he looks at
Somebody wants to be found corrupt.
He looks at Dia and says, Dikbo. That's all he said. Dikbo. He said, you're right, sir. So he now looks at Etete. So Dan, what are you telling me? Literally, Etete goes on his knees and says, I'm sorry, sir.
What time?
You can't be found corrupt.
Now, when Abdulsalam becomes head of state, the first meeting we had, because he needed a briefing, and we were the only organization that could give him a comprehensive briefing
of what was happening
of the country. The first question Aluko asked him said, General, even if you're wrong, you're right, Abi. He said, no,
we're not doing
it's
that.
a different dispensation. So you asked me that question. Abdul Salam was very different. He was very liberal, very broad, very open-minded. He, in terms of, he was in a hurry to go. He was in a hurry to go. He was in a hurry to hand over and all that. But working with him was very delightful, even though it was a very short period because I also left to go contest and all that. But he was very liberal. He would listen to you. Abacha wear these sunglasses. You can't see his eyes.
You don't even know what he's doing.
And he was very impatient. I remember once at a council meeting, he turned to Gambo, who was Minister of Agriculture, and said, Agric, how much money what's the cost of fertilizer subsidy? Gambo didn't know. So next thing was Antoniani, who was Minister of Finance. So Antoniani looked at him and Antoniani was just being mischievous. He said, 20 billion. Just called a figure. So Gambo said, 20 billion. So Abacha said, eh? And he said, 8 billion. He said, 8 billion. So Abacha said, what are you calling? And he said, 15 billion. Bad man. He was just being mischievous. He was just playing with the guy. But there was trepidation in dealing with Abacha. He hardly had council meetings. Whoa. He can go 3 months, he won't have any council meeting. No time. And there was always this threat of reorganizing the cabinet. So ministers will wait till there's a story he's going to reorganize. So when he says that the council meeting, they think is the final one. So this time the rumor was really rife that he was going to change his cabinet. Yeah. So we got in, and they'll come to our office to ask Professor Luka, have you heard anything like that? Bro, we say nothing like that. Say, everybody's saying the man is going to be. The ministers were like kids. Yeah. So we get into council. On this particular day, the Minister of National Planning at that time, Ayo Ogunlade, in council, you put on your mic and you speak. Yeah. He now put up his hand and he got up to speak. Abacha said, sit down. He said, no, sir. I want to stand up and speak. First of all, you don't say no to Abacha because it was good. Yeah. So the guy insisted on standing up. So Abacha said, okay, stand. Then the man now turned around and said, Secretariat, I want you to record everything I'm saying here. They do that normally. Why are you emphasizing? This man went on to praise Abacha to high heaven. He said, Nigerians don't know what they have. He said, God sent you at this time to save our country. He went on. It was so bad, Abacha told him, sit down. He said, no, sir, I won't sit down. He said, sit down, you sycophant. He said, no, sir, I won't sit down. So Abacha said, okay, talk. He went on and praised Abacha to high heavens. When he was there, he sat down. Abacha said, are you tired now? I said, no. So the meeting went on. After the meeting, Professor Luko called him and said, Aburo, what was all that about? He said, okay, I hear they want to change cabinet too. Let me shoot my shot. But the interesting thing is, 2 weeks later, they changed cabinet and the man survived. So you see, but when he wanted something done, it was done. But again, he wasn't prepared for leadership. Like, that's a bane. Most of our leaders are not prepared. They just thrust on them. So, and he was very myopic, and the ministers didn't have access to him. And
you can't lead like that.
You stayed so long outside, since you left your post as governor. How did you kind of say cope, and why did you go off radar for a long time?
Well, I was doing something before I became governor, and people ask, so why are you off the radar? I was doing something else. People expect you to keep on making noise so that people recognize you.
Well, there's good normal route from governor to
minister and all that. No, I'm not a legislative material. It'll be very frustrating for me to stand up, make a few points, sit down again, without being impactful. Let me use that time and do something else. Secondly, I was offered ministerial by several governments after, but who you work for matters. If you care about your reputation. And I must be ideologically aligned with the president to work with him. because I'm quite fastidious in what I believe in. And if I'm not going to function with you, let me go do something else, which is what I opted to do. And by the time I got the second offer, I was deep in a project which I'm handling now. And I felt that it would be unfair to the investors of that project to walk away and go do something different. So being a minister can be a frustrating thing if you're not aligned with the president, because he has the authority.
You don't have executive power.
You don't.
Yeah.
How do you plan to cope with the legislation?
It's politics. You've got to learn to work with them. You have to interface. They all have interests. They didn't come to Abuja to look at you or serve you. They all come from their constituencies. So the first thing is, let's take the budget. I'm going to ask the Legislative House, you submit your own budget. Submit the projects that you think are important to your own constituency. Because they have an interest. It's governance. It's not, the executive executes, but we're all part of government. So I may come from one local government that is far off, nobody knows about it, okay? I want you to tell me, in submitting your budget proposals, tell me the things that are important to you. I'll compile that. Even the governors, tell me projects that you think the federal government can do in your state. It may be a road, it may be a federal road, right, that are important. It's a compilation of all these things against the money that I have available that will determine, okay? So if the judiciary, the same thing. If we all, so when I submit a budget to you, it's really a compilation of everything that we did. So it will largely pass, because the first thing you get, when it gets to the member, he wants to see if they capture my project.
Yeah, true.
You know? And if you find that if you capture part of it, or you explain that, look, I can't capture in this year's budget, but I'll capture it next year's budget, you know, then you have a working relationship with them. So you don't just send whatever you like, then they just beef it up and all that. You'll probably get what you put in. And you must send in the budget at least 90 days before the end of the fiscal year. You can't send the budget in December.
You know,
I mean, I think the budget was just signed a few weeks ago in the rainy season. So construction is off.
Till the end of the year.
So you need to give them like 90 days and look, in Cross River, on or before the 30th of September every year, I give you the budget with the understanding that on or before the 31st of December, you give me back the budget. And it worked seamlessly. And once you have that understanding with them, because they need you, you need them. You can't keep on barking down with them, and this is when you have military heads of state there, because they're not used to this. This is, by the time you get to be a general, at that time, not even the general of today, I mean, you're so authoritative in your... So Obasanjo had the same problem too. Okay?
What I say?
You sit down, ask them, they give you their inputs. They must give you their inputs on or before June, right? Or even March. Then you compile them, you look at how you're going to do it. Where you cannot accommodate the inputs, you explain, okay? If a majority of the inputs are contained, the man who doesn't get it, he can't frustrate it because his colleagues have an interest. It's all about self-interest.
Yeah.
Nobody's there to serve anybody. Then you work with them alongside those things. It's not difficult, but you need to give and take.
Okay.
Doesn't sound difficult, does it?
No, you know,
because you know, when you just submit a document to them, they sit down, they tear your document into pieces, they hike this, they reduce this, they do this, they do that. By the time you get the document back, it's of no use to you. So why not make them part of the process?
It's a simple solution, not easy, but simple.
The best solutions are the simple ones. When you start designing something that is rocket, you know, a rocket is a very simple thing. It compresses air and pushes it, thrusts. It's propulsion. But when you look at it, it looks complex, but the thinking behind it is very simple.
Okay, one thing that frustrates me about the Nigerian society that we live in is, as salary earners, we earn monthly. But you now want to go and rent a house, and your landlord tells you, pay 1 year in advance, pay 2 years in advance, which is frustrating. How can you solve that problem?
Comes back to the banking system. Because the landlord built that house. He got a loan from the bank. The bank wants him to pay at 30% in 2 or 3 years. So he's going to fleece you. Okay? But if it was affordable, then he can spread his own payments. If you get a mortgage in a Western country, say the United States or Europe, it's 30 years. 30 years money. In 30 years, come on. at 3-4%, you build your house and all that. So it comes back. The financial system is very, very critical, but we underestimate it. That is one. Two, we have a 20 million housing shortage in Nigeria. 20 million. That's a lot, but it's also a great opportunity because you can create a lot of jobs on the back of that. The Navy in Calabar built a barrack using laterite, and it's beautiful, neat, clean, very decent. With that system of governance, and in Calabar it rains all the year round, and they built 100 units in under 6 months. And they said they were only, because they were not that efficient. I postulate that if you're very serious, you can do even over 1 million units, open new towns with this system of construction. And on the back of housing, you can develop industry. You see, housing, constructing this, there's masonry, there's plumbing, there's carpentry, there's electrical, all these come in. So the skills being enhanced. If you were able to do 1 million houses, which from the example of the Navy, you can easily do nationwide, you'd engage at least 15 million people working. Okay? And that, you could have a program whereby in 10, 15 years, you've bridged the housing gap. And that would reduce pressure. But if you change the financial system, the banks would not have cause to demand that much. I'm a landlord. I borrowed money to build a house. I know the pressure the banks put me under. And in fact, in my own case, I was asking for 5 years. Otherwise, I would have been in trouble. And I was lucky. Most people ask for 3 years. I found a tenant that was ready to pay that much because it was a good property. They wanted to keep it. But it's tough. It's really tough. If you want people to invest in that sector, you must also look at the offtake. In other parts of the world, you pay monthly. You don't even annually. It's a lot. You pay monthly, but you have some guarantee and all that.
Let's talk about security. Boko Haram. You mentioned, when you mentioned Boko Haram, you attributed some of those problems to, of course, the economy, people not having jobs, and economy. But it grows more than that.
It's a bit more than
it
that.
Is
yes. We've allowed it go more than that.
Yeah,
it started that way, but it escalated more than
But
that.
even primarily, right, the whole notion of Boko Haram, which is, the war against, Western
Education.
That's a mask. It's not true. It's a mask. You've got to give a dog a bad name to kill it. They didn't get up and say, well, all of a sudden we're against Western education. Nah. Because there was the environment was ripe for detention. I'll explain this to you. The immediate cause of Boko Haram was political. The governor then, Ali Modu Sharif, and at that time there was this word of Sharia
all over the place, yeah.
And a number of states had done it. Now, if you understand it, and that's the sad thing, we don't study history. The Kanem Borno Islam is different from the Sokoto Islam. And if you look at the structure of Islam in Nigeria, the Sultan, right, is number one. But almost parallel is the El Kanemi.
Yeah.
He was never conquered by Sokoto.
True.
It was a willful adoption. It's not like all the other emirates of Kano, all the others who got their flag from Uthman Dan Fodio, right? He gives you, you fly the flag, you take over the place and all that. So you have, all of them are of Fulani stock, right? Whether it's Kano, Katsina, even as far as Ilorin, the Gambaris are Fulani stock. But in Borno, it's pure Kanuri. Okay? Now, there's this spread of Sharia, which again was political. Okay? And it was catching on. And the governor wanted on the back of that for elections, because there were people who were going to use it against them.
Yeah.
So he had a deal with this guy, I forget his name now, but the guy who was killed. After the elections, what's his name? Yusuf, yes. After the elections, he reneged. Yusuf is one of these ideologues. So he pulls out and is, like an anti-government sentiment. And he's extrajudiciary executed. But he had a followership, and the followership were threatened. And the army and the police were mayhem. They were slaughtering them. It's in YouTube, you've seen the pictures.
Yeah.
Okay. If at that point, that is the immediate cause. Before I go into the remote cause, if at that point there was inquiry and all those who were involved in that were brought to book, you would have stemmed Boko Haram. It wouldn't have happened. But nothing was happening. So the guys they felt threatened, they ran into the bush and took up arms, right? Now, what's the remote cause that I said created the environment? Poverty. Don't forget that in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, that part of the country was a cotton belt. Yeah. Nigeria was on the cotton map of the world. We were one of the largest cotton producers in the world. And we had textile mills everywhere. When the textile mills collapsed, cotton growing died. So talking about agriculture, you've got to tie agri to industry. Otherwise, it will remain always at the subsistence level. If you want agri to grow, you've got to tie it
to something else.
Into processing.
Yeah.
And processing is not working today because bank rates and affordability of funding.
Nobody can purchase the machinery.
So it also fell at a time when we started getting these cheap imports from Southeast Asia, from the Far East and Asia, China, India, and all that.
Easy to flip and sell. Yeah.
So it was the textile mills were not sustainable because cheap imports were wiping out everything. So one after the other, they started shutting down. And as long as the demand was no longer there, cotton farming ebbed. Nigeria was one of the largest cotton growing nations in the world in the 60s. So that wiped out. So they were poor. Okay? So in the face of poverty, these things, that's why I said that's the remote cause. But the immediate cause was a political issue that was not dealt with. So how do you reverse it? You still may have to go back to that political thing to deal with it. That's one. Two, you've got to find a way of engaging. But also, it's a failure of intelligence. We've been fighting Boko Haram for 7-8 years now, longer than the Nigerian Civil War, more expensive than the Nigerian Civil War, more death than the Nigerian Civil War. Yet we don't have intelligence on what's going on. How come? By now we should have infiltrated that place. So it's a carrot and stick. While you're dealing with them militarily, right, you're trying to embed them because we created the environment for that thing to thrive. Then you've got to also... Then after, when you bring it under control, you must massively invest in that area. One of the things, like I said, housing, for instance, that doesn't require too much skills to build, right? And start building using this form of construction, because a lot of folks are homeless now. The danger, we have the IDP camps there. I don't know if you have visited any of those camps. We're creating the next generation of Boko Haram in those camps. The living conditions of the folks in those camps is abhorrible. The abuse going on in those camps is unimaginable. You see a woman with 4 or 5 children, she doesn't know who the parents are. The people who are managing the camps are raping the women. The soldiers who are looking after the camp are raping the women. The women agree because they need money to feed the children they're on. And look, they have at the back. A lady told me, she used to be a permanent secretary. She said she's from that area. She went to one of the camps. And there's this lady, she said what struck her was the beauty of the woman and the innate pride in her. She was not very literate, but she had this the way she carried herself. And she had a kid at her back. And she slept with one of the soldiers there. They called her and said, "Why are you doing this?" And she looked at the woman, looked at her for a while and said, "How do I feed this? Is it because of this body? Let them take it. I need to feed this." Aliko told me a story. He goes to a camp and he sees one of these boys. Boy was about 5 years old. And he looks at him and says, "Inababa." Inababa means, "Where's your father?" The guy looks at him in a very strange way. What is Baba? He doesn't understand the concept of fatherhood. So you're bringing up loveless children into the world, right? The danger is that when they now get to the prime of their lives and unleash the anger on society, don't expect mercy. And we're not doing anything about it. Okay, and there are many camps. There are the camps that they use when they bring the Bill Gates of the world. They go and show them the camp.
The PR camps.
Right? Those are PR camps. The real camps, you don't want to go there. So we're not dealing with these issues. And you can't keep people in a camp for... Camps are meant to be transitional. By now,
That's too long.
you should engage
Integrate them back into society.
You can't keep them in camps for too long. When I was governor, we stopped orphanages in Cross River.
Why?
Because you can't bring up a child in an orphanage. A child needs love. So we made them transit camps. We got people to adopt them. There's a certain criteria you go through, right? And if you meet the criteria, you can take a child there. So we emptied, in about a year to 18 months, we emptied up their orphanages. And we found that it's usually the women or families where maybe their children have grown up and they've gone, or they don't have them, and they take up these children. And we monitor. But we go through very, very, very stringent criteria for you to qualify. But you can't bring up a child in an orphanage. A child needs love. There's no love in that environment. And people were just making money from these things, you know. Doesn't work.
Let's move on to Masob, Biafra. What are your thoughts?
It's discontent.
Still that's a problem.
It's discontent, where you feel that you are marginalized and you are not... Buhari made a statement that was... I don't know if he realizes how impactful that statement was. It was in an interview in the United States, and a lady asked him a question how he would deal with those in Niger Delta and all that. He said, well, those who didn't vote for him should not expect... How can you say that?
That's very tone deaf.
Yeah, how can you say that? So, the people who were championing Biafra is a concept, right? I'm not sure they believe it will happen, but they needed to express themselves. So they were pushing, they wanted to be heard. It's a protest. It's a marginal, and it was poorly handled. The champion of it, who probably wasn't born when Biafra even existed, right? The way he was dealt with was a bit too high-handed. The moment you arrest him for sedition or whatever you want, the courts give him bail, grant him bail, and monitor him, that's all. It took a while for them to release him. He went to court several times, it took a while. And so you're flouting court orders. Then when you eventually release him, by that time you've made a hero out of this guy. Yeah. He goes to his house, in his father's compound. He forms a small army, unarmed army. Yeah. I saw a video of him inspecting some people without, and all that. At that point, I think it was a joke. Yeah. But he had the sympathy of the people because they didn't feel part of the administration. And you now send tanks and all this against him. And the question people ask, is it because it's from this part? So, look, herdsmen whom you claim are non-Nigerians come in and kill people. And you don't send army after them. In fact, they start making excuses for them. It's because of the grazing law, it's because of this, it's because of that. But you agree that these are foreigners, even if there's a grazing law, but you say they are foreigners, they're not Nigerians. They come into your country and they're killing your people, and this is how you deal with them. Then a Nigerian is rabble-rousing. In a democracy, it's freedom of speech. You can say whatever you like. If you feel so bad, take him to court and all that. If you felt that he was abusing his terms of bail, you go back to court and they can rearrest him and all that. But you send the Nigerian army, say, Operation Python Dance or something like that, or Crocodile Smile or something.
Python Dance 2.
There's 1 and 2. I think that created...
a bit of a problem.
It was a problem. It was poorly handled.
Okay. More than 17 million Nigerians in diaspora. We see the news every day of Nigerians being killed in South Africa. 27 girls died in the Mediterranean Sea, and were buried in Italy without any Nigerian official there. do we have enough problems? Is it just we have enough problems here? We don't care about them?
Frankly, we're not a very caring society. We have an embassy in Italy. Questions should have been asked. And I said, I talked about consequences, right? Because you have a huge number of Nigerians in prisons around the world.
Yeah.
How does the embassy engage in all this? You know very well that if you arrest an American, even a Nigerian American, once he carries an American passport, right, the embassy will ask questions. The embassy immediately will ask questions. That's because they feel responsible. People take their job seriously. Here we don't. We don't even have a migration policy. So people just stroll out of the country. Again, it's because there's discontent. The economy, there are too many people outside the economy, so they're trying to survive. Even the people who are educated. The number of Nigerian professionals that are trying to emigrate, right, is a huge number.
It's legal and illegal. It's
so
on both fronts. Yeah.
But people have to survive. And if you cannot cater for them, they'll find their way. Look, I have engaged some of them. I know a chap who went through the Sahara Desert. He found his way as far as Italy. It took him 3 years, Odyssey. They're probably trying to make a film of it, okay? The stories are agonizing. You sleep at night, you wake up, the man next to you is dead, right? You learn to drink the urine of others because you can't even produce urine any longer. You're so dehydrated. So where they're able to urinate, they keep it. Because when they're thirsty, they drink it. People go around stealing other people's urine just to survive. It's that bad. So it's not then you go onto a rickety boat. That boat could
capsize.
Anything could happen. So at least half of them are lost. They go through slavery, they go through this. The women are abused. It's not just men. The women are abused. They sell themselves and all that. And we just turn a blind eye to it as if it's not happening. We're not policing. We're not even engaging the countries through which they're going through. We should be able to engage Niger. We should be able to engage Chad, engage Libya and all that. We're not doing all those things. So, well, folks, I've said this and said, look, even the people in Nigeria, we're looking after them. Those ones that have gone, they're no longer in our border and all that. So our government has to be more responsive. And that means changing the way we are governed. Each and every one of us matters. We all matter. I have a series called Bridging the Gap, and I talk about a number of these issues, and I think you should plug into it.
Where can we get on YouTube?
Yeah, donaldduke.ng.
Okay.
And there's a program there, Bridging the Gap.
How did you manage to stay in tune with what's happening? Because people go into offices and just become tone deaf. They don't know what's happening. People don't tell them. How do you manage to, to relate with people?
To get
know the pulse of what people are
feeling? I didn't go into politics for self-actualization. I went in because I believe we're better than this, and we could do better. And you think through problems. A number of times we throw money at problems. It doesn't solve it. It may abate it, but it won't solve it. You've got to think through, why are things like this? Why can't we do this and that? And you try and reason it out and all that. I may not have all the answers, but I'm sure if we put our heads together, we can find the answers. And so my passion for politics was not self-actualization. And I mean this with all earnestness. I just felt that we could, if we don't do something urgently to correct our society, it will come back to haunt us. And it's already happening.
What do you think about President Trump and his comments on some African countries?
Trump is a very interesting person. Beyond the name that we share, we both belong to the same alma mater. We both went to University of Pennsylvania. Yes. Yeah. So, but beyond that, and when I was at Penn, Trump was the first set of yuppies. Was Donald Trump. He was a billionaire under 40.
Yeah.
He's always been brash. He gave a commencement lecture. Was it commencement? He gave a lecture once at the Wharton School. And he was very popular then, young, really good-looking chap, really, really good-looking. And suave, he came in to give a lecture. All I remember from that lecture was, I am rich. I'm very, very rich. And all that. But beyond that, talking of his presidency, there's sense in his nonsense. He's not a conventional president.
Yeah, definitely
He does
not.
not have the ethos of a president, but take his style and look at the depth. Take the recent controversy. The United States really pays for the security of Europe. The United States has over almost 100,000 troops in Europe. They have about almost 60,000 in Germany alone, 25,000 in Italy, not to talk of England and all the other places. Over 100,000 troops. They're not paid by Europeans. They're paid from American taxpayers' money. They carry equipment. So the equipments are not bought in Europe. They're American equipments transported there. Okay? You may say it's their strategic interest, but they're protecting also those countries, right? But those countries, America can't trade with them. They put all sorts of barriers. So where am I going to get the money from the taxpayers to support you know? So there's some sense in it. He says, if we're protecting you, come on, he's not asking for free trade, he's asking for fair trade.
Fair trade.
There should be a balance. And it's very important. Where there's an imbalance in trade is wrong. And I'll talk about that if I have the time. Look at Canada. American farmers and dairy producers cannot export anything to Canada. Right? Because the tariffs are high and there's a lot of stringent barriers. But they can sell anything, including steel, to the United States. It doesn't work that way. Or look at his migration policy. The border, America has two land borders, Canada and Mexico, and the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Yeah.
The Mexican border, people just walk across. Won't you just walk across and disappear because it's a desert, and all that. People just get into it. You can't allow that. And that was happening. People come as far as Nicaragua, walk across Mexico and go in. So you might not like his language and all that. But hey, the man says, I'm president of the United States, I'm not president of the world. So there's some sense, his style is not my style, but there's a method to the madness. So I respect that. Your critical comment about Nigeria, about Africa, what he said. Well, he's denied it. He said he didn't say it. So it's you say, I say. So he denied it.
Do you think the United States should have done more in helping us with Boko Haram?
Well, heaven helps those who help themselves. Let's help ourselves first, right? Then we can ask them to help us. I have engaged with folks in the consular section of the embassy and all that. They tried to, but they didn't find willing partners. The equipments the Boko Haram people use are Nigerian army equipment, right? They give you intelligence. And before you know it, the Boko Haram people get it. So they were frustrated. So right now, between US, France, Britain, and Germany, there are 10,000 troops from Mali to Niger to Chad and Cameroon just there to contain Boko Haram. Because we've got to help ourselves. So we need help, but we need to also help ourselves. We need to be ready for it. Have I exhausted you?
No. We're actually, it's good to really just discuss and really think critically about, I was thinking about the Trump thing and, how you said he might be very brash, but like things he's done, and it just came to my mind.
Look at the economy.
He's met with Kim Jong-un, a lot of presidents have tried to have that relationship with North Korea.
He was brutish. He really came hard on sanctions, right? I made the man know that, look, where you create switch, I go match you and I'll beat you at it, and the man said, okay, let's talk. So we may not like the method, but it's working.
There's a method
now,
to the madness.
NATO countries are upping their expenditure on defense,
right?
Now he's engaging the Chinese. So look, you can't keep on putting barriers on trade. And guess what? America has an advantage, right? Because America imports a lot from China. China doesn't import as much. So he can put those barriers. At the end of the day, China needs America more than America needs China. So you'll find that, yes, they'll argue, go back and forth, but they'll sit down and agree on something. And he's doing the same thing with Europe. Europe is particularly painful for him because he's literally paying for their defense, but they're not giving him access to the markets. So you may not like his style, but
he's president.
That's his style. Everyone has his style. I mean, Obama's style was swagger, but it wasn't delivering.
Yeah, you came into Cross River State, young, fresh, with ideas.
I'm still fresh.
Yeah. Do you think largely that's what has caused our we not progressing as a country because of people who've been handling our affairs?
Why, age?
Age, the ideology, the ideas.
It's not age. Look, it's not the age. It's the age of the ideas. If you're not prepared for office, whether you're young or old, you'll misbehave. You won't get it right. So it's not that age. I mean, no. You just have to prepare for office. It's not something you go in there and want to do. You have to sit down and think through sector by sector. Have a clarity on the issues and be determined that I'll have to make it work. I've watched Donald Trump over the past almost 2 years now. There's a certain determination to get his way. Yeah. If he was a fluke, by now he'll be tired. But there's a certain determination. I mean, I just before coming here, I was watching his interview with the Prime Minister of the UK. And I mean, a lot of the things he said about her government and this is not diplomatic. But he said it. I've said it. This is what I believe in. I think the world is coming used. Okay, this is your style. We'll take it and all that. But it makes a lot of sense. He said to her, for instance, if you go the way you're going, you'll not be able to have a free trade arrangement with the US because the EU will not allow you. Right? So you've got to determine which market you prefer. EU or US, and the US is a larger market. So there's, his style may be different.
Yeah, from your experience with the Obudu Ranch International Mountain Race, that's generally the problem we have with sports also in Nigeria, where we can't bring in, people to engage in anything that's, even the football, we don't even bring in anybody here to do it. We don't have the infrastructures, grassroots is totally dead. And so from your experience with, what you started in 2005, yes. How, on a general level, federal level, like as a country, what do we need to do more, in sports development? Planning.
What do you want to make out of it? Do you want to be champions or you just want to be participants? Right? The Obudu Mountain Race was actually born of tourism. We wanted to create a race that would attract attention to the ranch and show it. And it was shown on DSTV and Super Sports and all that. And so you see the cable car, you see the mountains, and it was a way of selling it. And it grew to become the richest mountain race in the world. The star prize was $50,000. The next prize to that, anywhere in the world, was $20,000. So every mountain runner wanted to be on that circuit. So it was busy and was good. Again, continuity is stopped now. But we need to ask ourselves, what is all this about? You know that every 4 years you have Olympics. You know that every 4 years you have a World Cup. Look, I'll use a personal example. My second daughter, she was an athlete. At the age of 14, the British High Commissioner came to visit me in Calabar. This was 2006. And asked me, I was quite friendly with him. And he said to me, Governor, are you aware that your daughter took part in a Prince of Wales or Prince of Edinburgh competition? Apparently, it's an age group thing. And she came first in 100 and 200 meters. In other words, at the age of 14, she was the fastest 200 and 100 meter runner in the entire UK. I said, I know she took part in the competition, but I didn't go into the details of it. He said, you're a very poor father. So, well, we know we were friends. But what was his mission? He said to me, I'm here on Her Majesty's mission. They were schooling in England. We want to retain her to prepare her for the Olympics.
What?
The Olympics was taking place 2012.
2012,
6 years ahead, they were recruiting and training because at the age of 20, she was 14. At the age of 20, the athlete peaks. That's your peak age at 20.
That's the,
Right? So they train you for that 6 years. They first get the best 6 years prior, right? And train you. preparing for Olympics. That's a serious country. They knew they were hosting the Olympics. They knew they had to do well in the Olympics. You can't host and be come number 30, you know.
See why you can't host in Nigeria.
You know, so they recruited. So I said to him, I said, but she wasn't born in the UK. He said, don't worry about that.
Sorry,
I said, okay, if you give her passport, you give me to no. But my wife jettisoned that because she thought it would affect her physique and all that, you know. But it's a thought behind it. You know you're having this. They weren't planning for the 2008 Olympics. They were planning for the 2012. So they were going to train her, put her on a special diet. They even got her admitted into Loughborough University, which is a sports university, right? Just hoping that, you know, so they can monitor her and all that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a failure. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Still the long-term planning we talked about.
What did you think about the Super Eagles' performance at the World Cup?
Or the lack of it.
Steve would argue Steve would argue seriously.
Steve is not one supporter of the Super Eagles.
Look, we all know we can do better than we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, a Brazilian sports commentator said once, and it's true, he said, the problem with Nigeria is our inconsistency. Sometimes we do very well and there's a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Then the next time we just floor, you know. So we're a large country, 200 million people. Football is by far the largest sport in Nigeria. You can have 20, 30, 40 Super Eagles teams in this country if you do the training. China has over 100 sports colleges. China wants to be, in the next 8 or 10 years, number one in soccer in the world. Look at Croatia, it's a small country.
4 million.
They can win the World Cup, okay? You've got to plan for it. Nothing just happens by happenstance. You have to work and plan for it, but we don't. You know, so last minute we just got to go, all those players who are playing abroad, come. Then we add a few, you know, it doesn't work like that. Because even to sync, you know, and yes, you can have players abroad, but you must have several, and you know, it must be so competitive. Yeah. And Nigerian players abroad have an attitude. Oh, but it's almost automatic. We'll come in because we play for Chelsea. No. You've got to earn your stripes.
There's a general mistrust again, you know, for the political class.
Understandably.
Yeah.
And justifiably too.
Yeah. You know, from young people. How do you, dispel that notion?
You've got to earn their trust.
Yeah.
I like using my example. When I got in as governor, first of all, I was young, so they were suspicious, this young Lagos boy, you know, and all that. Then I was talking of sanitation, cleaning the place, and the people thought like, well, that's not our problem. We want food on our table, not what's all this planting grass and all these things. Then you talk of tourism. What is tourism, you know? But gradually, I earned their trust. Trust is not an award, you earn it. Even your child, you can have 4 or 5 children. Each one has to earn your trust, right? It's not just award you because you're a governor, no. Governor, at best, you'll get respect, doesn't mean I trust you. That is you earn. So the politicians have to earn the trust of the electorate and the governed. Sadly, there's nowhere in the world that politicians have achieved that. There's always a cynicism against politicians. It's just the degree. In Nigeria, it's very, very high. Yeah. But because we're all human, but you've got to earn it.
All right, are you guys done? I have the last question.
Yeah. No, Steve, you have something.
Steve hasn't drilled me now.
The festivals, the Calabar festivals, and everything like that. Like you as a person, you know, your governance, your style, it reflects. It comes from you. You know, we see that you're liberal. How do you relax? You like music? You know, apparently you play the saxophone. How did this start for you?
Fela taught me how to play the sax. Yeah. I know you weren't expecting that. No. I was pretty friendly with him. Wow. And he liked me. I think he liked me more for my name. He thought my name was so foreign, Donald Duke. Always trying to get me to change my name.
Yeah, exactly.
They call me
so
Kolo.
How did you meet him?
Shrine.
Interesting.
I was social secretary in Zaria in ABU, and so we wanted him to. But before then, I used to go to the shrine a lot. His paymaster was a family friend, and so I'll go to shrine. Of course, I wouldn't pay. I'd take my friends, and his paymaster then, Roy Smith, you know, would just clear the gate and I'll pass him. He said, Aburo me, let him go, you know. And all that. Then I got to meet Fela, and we just got on, you know. And I could go to his house at Mashalashi and we just gist and talk. And prior to that, I used to play the piano as a kid, and I played the guitar in secondary school, so I was already musically inclined. But there was a certain cool to the sax.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I don't know how I came about, but I wanted a sax. And he said to me, if you want to play the sax, you have to own one, because you don't share it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I bought myself a saxophone, and I started learning and all that. So he inspired it. I never practiced with him, but he inspired that.
Interesting.
Then we got really close. Once I invited him, I told him that the crowning to my being social secretary is if he comes to play in Zaria.
Interesting.
You know, he said, okay, he'll do that for me. But where the money? He was quite a character. We didn't have the money. So he said, okay, he'll give a lecture instead. And I said, lecture? He said, yes, I'll give you a lecture. A lecture or nothing. If you don't pay me money, I no come. So I said, okay, lecture. And it was such a brilliant idea.
This was 80.
This was 81.
Ooh.
1980.
Think of his,
Yeah, 1980.
Yeah.
So he flew into Zaria, into Kaduna. He chartered a plane, flew into Kaduna. I received him at the airport. We had a coaster bus, took him to Zaria. He arrived at about 1. The lecture started about 4 p.m. He spoke for 5 hours non-stop and held everybody spellbound. You know, he fancied himself as an intellectual.
Yeah.
He talked about everything. His relationship with his wives. I want to use the language he would use and all that. There's nothing he didn't talk about. He talked about Festac. He talked about Benwu. I mean, he knows his brief, you know. And it was better than having a show. I mean, professors were there. The hall was full. For 5 hours, everybody was like that. You know, and it was simply amazing. And to me, that was a crowning event as, you know, my 1 year as social secretary. And quite a remarkable person. Quite conflicted too. Because, you know, people like that, they don't usually practice what they preach.
Yeah.
He was very dictatorial. He managed his establishment like a boot camp, you know, but he was brilliant. I mean, once I was watching him on the shrine and the music was playing. He had incredible ears. Everything was okay, but he detected a tune off. So the guy is playing the guitar. He goes there and he starts to tune the guy's guitar as he's playing. Then when he gets it right, he gives this guy a bad slap. Wham! You know? So, you know, and the guys, you know, but you know, so his ears were, he was brilliant. You go to the shrine, it starts about 12:31 a.m., right? And he's playing, and 5 hours will go. You think it's maybe 1 or 2 hours, then you hear CCP, custom checkpoint. You look up, it's daybreak.
Wow.
And you think you've only spent an hour and a half. You're totally mesmerized. Then he'll tell you short break. Short break is over.
How was your relationship with him when you started working like with the government?
No, he passed before. He passed in 98.
Yeah, he passed in
97,
yeah. But you know, and again, this is subjective. I think after a while,
he got
his music,
Yeah.
you know, now this is subjective. I remember once telling him that for me, his best composition was Palava, right? And that double album where you had Palava and Rafa Fight, you know? He looked at me and said, you don't know anything. He believed that each one was better than the other one, you know, and all that. And of course, there's Water No Enemy and all that. But when he now introduced what he called the second bass guitar, right? And you see that in Teacher, No Teach Me Nonsense and all that. For me, well, it was more intellectual music at that point, because to have two bass guitars playing simultaneously is deep.
Yeah.
But in terms of commercial value, I think it was going down. But again, like I said, it's subjective.
Subjective.
But the point is, the man, the man introduced an entirely new genre
Sound.
of music. And it's being studied today in universities across the world.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant.
Amazing.
What other things?
But it was very self-destructive too.
Yeah,
What other things do you listen to?
Music?
Yeah.
I'm varied, right? I don't understand current Nigerian music because they all sound the same. And,
Shaku shaku.
you know, Western music, old school, I like that because I grew up in that age.
80s,
you know,
70s.
70s and all that. Bob Marley was phenomenal. Let me tell you a story between Fela and Bob Marley. You see, a friend and I, Ogune Yaoki, he's late now, went to see Fela. Ogune Yaoki was as close to Bob Marley as I was as close to Fela. So in the course of discussion, by this time, Bob Marley had died.
Okay.
So Ogune told Fela that at his death, he was worth 200 million. Fela kept quiet for about 5 minutes.
This guy is
He
wild.
didn't say a word. Afterwards, he said he must die. He was talking to himself, but he said, why you no go die? He must die. Baba, why now? He said, the motherfucker. He said, we had a concert to do. Himself, Bob Marley, and Stevie Wonder were going to go on a world tour.
What?
And on that tour, Fela said he was going to make $1 million. Then you see, when he was disturbing Nigeria, Kalakuta and all that, his value was $1 million. Right? He said on that tour, he was going to make $1 million, and that would have been okay for him. But they couldn't do the tour because, according to him, the motherfucker was sick. Okay? And then eventually the motherfucker died. So he kept quiet. He said he must die. But he was something else. He was absolutely stunning, and on stage he was magnetic. And you know, we know him for this, but he was a classical artist. If he at Awolo Road, Jazz 38, with Tunde Kuboye and all that. You were talking about TF Kuboye.
Yeah.
That's named after
named after him,
after Tunde Kuboye. Tunde was married to his niece. She's late now. And so I think it was Thursday or so, they would have just pure jazz. No high life, no Afrobeat. And he was playing. And he was amazing. So, you know, he knew he was skilled. He went to school.
And the message in his music.
That's, you see, there's a difference between art and craft. A lot of the music we play in Nigeria is the work of craftsmen. They're hustling, they just start making it. When it's art is inspired. Craft is intellectual. Craft is where you think, look, I changed this thing to sound like this. But art comes out of you. If you watch a film called Amadeus, it's about Mozart. When he wrote, he heard the music and it was as if he was taking a dictation. No cancellation, nothing. So in the film, Salieri, who was a brilliant artist but was amazed at Mozart, he saw his script. Original, no cancellation. You know? So you know that it comes from deep within. Fela's worked well like that. That's why till today, craft doesn't last longer. Art will last because it's inspired. It will last all long. Bob Marley is inspired. So you'll still listen to Bob Marley music. But craft music don't last long. They just fade away. And it's like a painting. The intellectual painters, and if you go to the Vatican, I went to the Vatican and honestly, my head was like this and I had neck pain. You see the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, jeez. And they'll tell you that what they show is just a small percentage of what the Vatican has money. I wonder. But you can see inspired works, So there's craft, but art is purely inspired. And Fela was an inspired artist. There's this day we went to the shrine and it was a Friday night and he had just been raided by the army. At that time, shrine was at Moshalashi and across was Abalti barracks. And they were always having conflicts. The soldiers would come, maybe want to rape one of the women or harass one of his people on the roadside. Then they will run into the place and, conflict. So on this day we got there They're throwing tear gas all over the place into the shrine. We had to disperse. Then we came back. His mother was alive then. So the show that ought to have started about midnight started about 2:30 a.m. And he was angry that we didn't stand up to the folks. And I didn't mean stand up. My father doesn't know where I am. Standing up, as he was talking and chastising that we have to stand up for our rights and everything, he just stopped. Then he said, I have a song in my head. I know that the name of the song is titled Suffering and Smiling.
Wow.
He said, but the band doesn't know the song. In 1 month, I'll play it. 2 weeks later, I went to his home and they were rehearsing it. And he was actually singing about the event, you know?
Wow. Wow. That's deep. That's deep.
And you know, you'll see his mother there. She was in her late 70s. She also was glued at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning watching her son, you know, and all that.
Wow. All right, so last question ties back to my first question, which is, you know, which ties essentially to the backbone of what I predict, you know, this presidential race will be, riding on the back of young people, canvassing young people to come out to vote. What's the message you have to people, young people broken down into young people who have their PVCs, who won't come out to vote, those who don't have their PVCs yet?
Young people have to learn that they are the next, they have to take charge, right? They have to take charge of society. They can't abdicate it. Sooner or later, it will fall on their lap. And the sooner they get involved, not necessarily running for elections, but even determining those who govern them, the better for them. And they can't sell themselves short. Give you rice, give you this and all that. That's nonsense, right? You need to engage your representatives, whether it's a councillor, chairman, or governor, what is in it. And then when he speaks, you understand, you know whether he understands what he's talking about. So if they don't take charge today, they will suffer tomorrow. So it's to their benefit that they get involved and take charge. I see it happening though. It happened to some extent in 15, okay? What we're advocating for is even more of that. And when you look at the voters' registration, it spiked, particularly in the South. It just spiked. It's not where we would want it. A lot more have now gotten. I was talking to a church leader, and I said to him, a staff of mine in Calabar went to church, and they wouldn't let him into church until he showed his PVC. He said yes, that he had asked them to, all this pray, that is, you work and you pray. You can't just come here and be praying and hope that, you know, we have to get involved. But I see a lot of organizations, churches, civil society, and all that. So you said something. It's not just getting the PVC, but on that day, will they come out and use it?
Yeah.
I hope we will sensitize them enough. Again, if they find an inspiring candidate, they may want to come out. If they don't, they just sit back and say, I mean, I've also been in that dilemma. Right, in 2011, the folks who were running didn't inspire me. I didn't go out to vote. But it's wrong. You have to. You know, you have to vote. Because
what do you have to say about the notion that, you know, getting the PVC is easier in the north than it is here because they're trying to frustrate those?
I don't think it's a deliberate policy, and I hope not, right? But you see, in urban areas, you're working, you can't go and queue for too long. These guys are in rural areas, they have no job, so they can just sit down under a tree until it's their turn and they register, right? I don't think it's a deliberate policy. I've engaged INEC on this actually, and they said, ideally, every polling unit should be a registration center. And that will require having about 4,000 or 5,000, but the budget is not there. So they said, okay, every political ward, the budget is not there. So they had to reduce it to every local government. And that makes the queues very long, right? And it could take you days. If they had it in every polling unit, it's 500 people, right? Over a week, you register everybody. So we need to, well, that means we're not investing in our democracy too. Again, you know you're having elections in 4 years' time. You don't wait to a year before. It's part of the planlessness of our society.
Yeah.
Last question.
I've heard that before.
These guys called SARS, they're killing us.
Yeah, man.
They're really
SARS is
killing
heavy
us.
on the
We don't know
streets.
what we've done to them. We don't fit into their conventional kind of like, work. They see you with a laptop, immediately you're in.
They're extorting.
Yeah.
It's corruption, right? They extort people, and I've talked about corruption of need. You have this policeman who cannot fend for his family, so he takes and he's trying to extort. It's pure extortion. But the noise has been so loud on it, I'm shocked that there's no reaction from the authorities. Because what are they actually doing? Who are the commanders involved? Lack of consequences.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Donald Duke. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and, just taking us down this journey. We're looking forward to what you're going to do, the town hall meetings, and, the grassroots mobilization. We're also looking forward to the speeches. We hope there will be debates with the other presidential candidates as well.
There should be.
We all know they're not coming.
we hope to see more of that. But thank you again for coming on the podcast.
It's my pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Thank you
very much too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, guys, it's Loose Talk Podcast. Thank you.